Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook. Sorry. What is up? This is the Silver Spook Christmas party. Um, Having technical difficulties, but we're just getting started. But yeah, in case you're wondering, yeah, this will be a hangout with a bunch of friends of the Silver Spook of Silver Spook Cooperative, Silver Spook Hui, Silver Spook Community, game dev friends, friends from various spaces. And Yeah, we're just gonna. This is gonna be just very much like a digital, informal. We can't all be on planes traveling and being in everyone's houses all at the same time. I got friends all over the entire planet. So yeah, this is our the virtual fireplace hangout where we will see who shows up. Hey, what's up, Big Teal? We already got one. Good to see you, Big Teal. Um, yeah, glad you figured that out. We're probably gonna have a so we're gonna have we'll see who shows up. Um, and I think somebody's gonna show up in about an hour. But yeah, if you let me know if your audio when it gets working, if you're still working on it. If it's working, then uh then yeah, but no worry if you gotta figure stuff out. Um,
Can you hear me now?
I can hear
Oh,
you. Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
okay, cool. So yeah, you're saying that some people are going to stop by in an hour?
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch invited. I think probably like 8 people. But I don't think all 8 are gonna show up. So 8 were invited, but I think like 5 are probably going to show up, or at least 4. Like you and 2 of our friends are already here, I think, but they're like gonna sign it. And then one person is gonna come about an hour later, and might have to go early. I totally understand. It's Chris. I know it is. It's a Christmas, so I'm sure people have family and other events to do. So if you have to go early or at a particular time, don't feel like you have to stay the whole entire thing. And that obviously is you as well. Big deal.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great. I can hear you. I can see you. Everything working out very quickly. So that's great.
I know, like usually I'm always on the struggle bus when it comes to like audio and video.
Yeah, I mean I'm also struggling. I'm trying to get all my graphics set up properly, and so don't. I'm struggling to stream properly myself. But yeah, how is it going though?
Today, yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone. Um, yeah, I guess well, if you don't know, I'm pretty much a political science nerd. I live and breathe, politics. And so for today, I've just been doing this like deep dive into Western Syrian propaganda.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
And
go ahead, keep going.
yeah, because I guess I feel a little caught off guard by the latest coup that happened. And when things like that happen, I'm like, okay, we got to go back. We missed some lessons, okay? And I'm even going back to like 2000, where like before Assad even came into power, and like looking up like, those gas stories about Assad that were actually debunked, but it seems like people forgot about that. And like even WikiLeaks had like notes from the whistleblower from the agency that said actually the people that you claimed or that the Western media like the BBC, they claimed that people had symptoms of sarin gas, and the UN rapporteur said, nope, we actually don't see that at all. And apparently that somehow got lost in the Western media somehow, but it's there. You can go find it and things like that.
Yeah, there's definitely there's lots of nonsense like when it comes to Syria and other places that everywhere in the world is such so distorted at all times. So yeah, definitely worth looking into. I also try to catch up with what exactly is going on in that region. Or just be
So
just
much.
yeah. What's up, Christina Amazon? Thanks for hopping in.
Oh,
Happy
hi.
holidays, Christmas, etc. Mama and
But
Media.
how's your Christmas going?
Um, and Neuro Riot. Yeah. Our Christmas is going good. Holly and I have we made a bunch of food obviously in the morning. We have like way too many meatballs, so it's like sometimes we will buy like a large ham or a turkey or something, because that's just like what a lot of people we just have done that. I guess my family used to do that, obviously on Christmas, but we did that for like Thanksgiving. We did that, so we're like, but we have so many meatballs for some reason. It just happens we have like 7 packages of meatballs, partially because when I'm walking through the grocery store and I'm like, I should just grab one of those, just in case, because we got to shop at the cheapest place possible, which happens to be Walmart in our area. It's the only place that sells that thing at a reasonable price. We can afford food. So, anyways, I have all these meatballs. So we're like, we're gonna make. We said it. We're gonna have three. We are going to have a BRICS summit of meatballs. We're gonna have Swedish meatballs. We're gonna have we're gonna have a United Nations international meetings. We have Italian meatballs. We have Swedish meatballs. We had Mongolian stir fry
Mm.
style meatballs that I have invented myself using sriracha sauce and teriyaki and garlic. And
Nice.
so we had like basically a kind of meatballs from every possible part of the world that I could possibly figure out how to cook from. I never actually made Swedish meatballs before, so I was like trying to figure out what makes it Swedish, because I've like had them, like the TV dinner, in school lunch, I've had them on airplanes, I've had them like, I guess IKEA has them. I've never been in an IKEA. The only furniture we have is homemade or used. So, but apparently they have the Swedish meatballs, right? So it's when I was like, what makes it white? And I was like, oh, I see. I looked at the ingredients list, and it's like, heavy cream, obviously the meat, flour, butter. And so it's basically just like the meat inside of the milk of the animal, and I'm like, and it's like, so it's very little. It's basically just a milk sauce. I was like, oh, I see what it is, and it was like really easy. Our One of our
Cool.
children really liked that one particularly. I don't like I'm not like big on it. It's just like we we were just trying to make like a whole different. I was just trying to make like every possible international, kind of like the Silver Spook panels when I could put them together. A super international, very represented, many different flavors of meatball. So I mean, my favorite is the Mongolian one because I need some spice in there. I can't like I gotta have some like pepper and garlic. Everything I cook always has at least like an entire onion in it, and I'm kind of not even joking. I have an entire onion and a whole bunch of garlic. And anyway, I'm just ranting now about my Christmas food. But anyways, so we cooked a bunch of food, and we had like not just that, we had like other food. There's broccoli, and we had what do we have? Holly made a bunch of mushrooms with like chili pepper flakes, and that was really good. And yeah, we basically just hung out. Oh, we opened presents. The kids like open presents. We got a bunch of Mario and Sonic. We got a Mario mushroom that lights up and it makes the sound of Mario eating his mushroom. I make video games, so I should
Mhm.
probably reference. So we got like more video games, more video game toys for the kids. And the son was really happy with that, I think. Um, and then we had just a whole bunch of, just general Christmas morning. Nothing super cool. I mean, I know a lot of people are traveling. Some people were gonna come with like, so this week, I'm sorry, I'm like traveling for 48 hours straight, or somebody's like, sorry, I'm like going 12,000 miles, and I'm like, well, we're not going anywhere. We're just gonna be here. So if you are traveling in this holidays, I hope you're not traveling in Azerbaijan, because apparently that was really horrible plane crash that happened there. So but I some of our friends I wanted to be here, but they can't be here because they're on planes all day, getting sick all day. Apparently, also because apparently it's very easy to get sick on planes. Who knew? um, uh, anyways, but yeah, that's kind of how it's been going. I see some other people have joined in. Um,
Hey, hi
hey,
everyone.
hey, what's up, Monogatete, Victor? How's it going?
How are you? Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
Feliz
Nice to see
Navidad.
you, Big Teal. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, yeah. How's it going there, Victor?
Cool. Um, nice. I spent the holidays with my family. We had a very large dinner. I'm processing it still,
Wait.
but very homey, very connected with all my family, and we had a great dinner today.
Oh,
That's
were you
awesome.
at your family's house?
Yes,
Did you cook anything yourself, or did they cook for you?
I cooked. I made lamb legs in the oven.
Oh, real cooking. Okay.
Yeah, I like to cook very much since
That's
I was
nice.
little.
Oh, we've got some chefs here.
Not sure if I'm at that chef level, but I manage.
Yeah, I heard you have a
You're a home cook.
I heard you have oranges. How's your orange tree? You put any oranges in your Christmas cooking?
No, it's still very little. The tree we planted it last year, so it haven't give any oranges yet. But I got 4 apples from my garden this fall, and I made a cake with them,
Oh, what kind of cake did you make?
an apple pie.
Oh, that's so yummy. I love apple pie. There's like they're classic.
Yeah, my family enjoyed it too.
Yeah, how is the weather over there in Victor Monogatse is in Spain, so how's it going there?
You surely have heard the news. We have a very big storm season last month. In Valencia, there was a lot of water in the houses and such, and politically is being managed very badly. There's people who can get back to their homes still today, and they're still mad in the streets. Weather has been very rough this year.
Yeah, I saw some pictures of the
And
flooding.
how is over there? Yeah, they were brutal. And how is there in Hawaii?
Yeah, in Hawaii, it's we definitely don't have that problem. Thankfully, for lucky for us, we have in Hawaii we have it's usually wetter in this time of year. It's usually um like I sometimes bring up. It's like the Hawaii has two seasons: the extremely super rainy season, and then the slightly less rainy season. Right, that's the two seasons. And so it's weirdly it's been a little bit drier than usually it is in the winter time. The winter time is the extremely rainy season. So it's been actually a bit drier. It was like hot. It was like summer weather for a few days. Not every day. It was kind of cool last night, but So it's been a bit drier. So I noticed that and the area that we're in, it usually gets like it gets like a high level of rain, but like where we are, like we're used to getting tons of rain, and so a lot of things are built. And actually, the area we're on is like volcanic, so there's actually an erupting volcano. You might have seen some video of Kilauea. It's one of the Hawaiian volcanoes
Yeah.
that's erupting. You seen the video of that? So we live like right next to the volcano. Basically, like we live less than 30 miles from it. Let's put it that way. So
Oh,
we're not worried about getting hit by it because of our location relative to it. We're in lava zone 3, which is basically like once every 500 years or 100 to 500 years you might get hit. It's like it's lower probability. There's some people that live like in lava zone 1, which basically means you're gonna guarantee you're gonna get your house will be bulldozed by 40-foot high wall of molten rock within 30 years. So some people are unhinged. Some people are usually uninformed, ignorant Americoids who want to show up and like build a house where the land is cheap so they can sell it for more, but they don't think with their brain too much. And then the lava destroys their house, and then they get mad, and it's funny. Anyway, we almost bought a
Thank you
house
for
there.
saying that.
Yeah, and like we actually looked at a house one time. It was like, wow, this house is like $30,000, $40,000 for a 2-bedroom house. Whoa! It was like missing a sink, but I mean, you get a 2-bedroom house for $40,000. Wow! And we looked down the street when we were checking it out, and it's like, oh, there's like sulfuric, like ramen. You know, because sulfur kind of smells like cooking ramen. It actually smells pretty good. It smells like boiling eggs. It smells like food, right? And like, why does it smell like eggy, tasty ramen right now? And why is there like smoke coming out of the ground? Like there's a crack in the street, and there's sulfur coming out, right? And we're like, oh, that's why it's $40,000, because this house will be destroyed by Pele, the lava goddess in Hawaii, and that will be it. That will be that. So some sucker is gonna buy a house. And anyway, long story short, we live in the lava zone. So when it rains, what the thing is, because it's a lava zone and it's a shield volcano, so it has what's called pohoihoi. It's a very viscous like thin lava, like the Mount St. Helens and like Krakatoa and like Mount Fuji, if it crater forbid ever explodes. That's a very sticky lava that like blows up, and it's very dangerous. But the lava here is very slow moving, so it moves at like approximately the rate at which you walk, like 1 mile per hour. If you're walking like a casual stroll, so you'll know you cannot stop it, but it's not like you're gonna. It's not like the volcano will explode and it'll come at like 80 miles an hour, barreling down like in a pile of lahar, like the lahar molten ice and ash and pyroclastic flows, and you'll just be dead because the lava moves very slow. But if you live in that area, then you're in danger. But also so we have a fire. There is technically a fire danger, but if it rains very hard in Hawaii, where we are, because it's a recent lava flow within the last few hundred years, the lava is actually, it's almost like styrofoam. It's like, if you plant like a rose bush or like a bok choy or something or like the planting foam, that green foam substance that you can kind of just shove stems into, the lava is as brittle as that on the new lava. It's actually like it's like a sandcastle almost. It's weird where you think of rock, but it's actually not rock on the top. It's more like lava. It's like lava dust, and there's layers of that. And so, but it is very porous. And so when it rains on that, then the water will actually just, if it rains on that, it's like a sponge. So even if it rains like 10 inches in one day, that's a lot of rain, obviously. That's like what Valencia got, right? Something like that. Even if it rains that hard, the water basically just instantly soaks into the lava rock, the pohoihoi, newer, very porous lava flows. And so we don't really care how hard it rains, because it does rain. Like, it will rain 10 inches on a random day, and it's like, yeah, that's Tuesday, not every Tuesday, but like it'll rain like 3 weeks straight all day, and then it'll be like super hard rain and then slightly less rain, and that's just normal. And some people like don't like that. They're like, oh my god, it's so rainy, I hate it. And they can go back to the United States and stop being a settler colonizer, and we don't care. So anyway, but you have to appreciate you're gonna get soaked with water, and lava will destroy your house. It just will. And the people who can't handle that and they like to play Ponzi pyramid scheme real estate capitalism games, they have to go away. And that's why I love the volcano, because it basically destroys landlords. Lava does the bidding of the Communist Party of China, by destroying. Houses are for living in, not for making money. And if you try to make money, Pele will set your house ablaze. and burn it to ash, and then it'll become of the new land that makes up the expanding Big Island shoreline. In one lava flow, the island can expand 2 miles out to sea. Like it just, and so your former,
That's awesome.
your speculative house just becomes part of the new coastline, this black moonscape coastline, and that's where Bill Gates' house lives now. Anyway, end of that. Yeah. Um, Long story short, it rains a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, like speaking of like dry weather, where I'm at in New York, at some point, like I remember being in my apartment and I smelled smoke. I was like, "Oh, is there something in the apartment?" And then I'm like, "Oh, is there something in the apartment building?" And I'm like, "Okay, New York City's been smoky before. Let's just relax. Maybe it'll just blow over." So So I decided to like, try to figure it out. Like, why does it smell like smoke? Am I gonna like burn, Because when I started thinking about it, I think it was like in November, and I think the last time I saw it had rained was sometime in like August. It was just like, wait a minute, it hasn't rained in almost like 3 months. That's kind of odd. And when I look at the weather, it said, oh, smoke. But I'm like, but where's the smoke coming from? Like, can you please tell me? And it turns out that Brooklyn Park was on fire. And so was New Jersey. And that was the smoke I was smelling tens of miles or thousands of miles away. And I was like, wow, the East Coast is on fire. And so luckily, we had some rain, I think in early December or late November. And so yeah, um, I definitely think that's global warming. I've never like in almost like the 30 years I've been here, it's never been that dry ever to the point where I could smell fire smoke from one borough away, right? And and yeah, and like I remember seeing like the pictures and at first I heard about Spain just to like bring it over there because I wanted to say something about that. I was like, oh, like, in the US you're kind of not used to, but you kind of get a lot of natural disaster stories. And I was like, oh, maybe it's very similar what happened in Spain. But when the numbers kept coming out about how many people have died, how many homes were destroyed, how far, I guess, how deep the water was, I was like, oh, this is really bad. And I saw the pictures. I don't think I've ever seen flooding that bad or something like you don't expect in Spain whatsoever. It and that the government, some people were not even warned, I heard. You could tell me Monogatete more if you'd like, but yeah, I could see why the people are still mad.
It really is a fun in the sad sense story. Um, we do not have states in Spain. We have autonomous regions like Catalonia, Valencia, Andalusia, Madrid. Um, there are like equivalent to the states, but let's say a lower regional level in competencies. They have usually education, rescue, some public infrastructure, and other things depending in how they deal and how they negotiated when Franco dictatorship ended with the central state. Some have more competencies, some have less, and it's a question of delegation of responsibilities. And the president of the autonomous region is from the conservative party, Partido Popular, Popular Party. And in the central government, currently is the PSOE, the Socialist Party, and the president of the Conservative Party, when every meteorology agency was raising awareness of the incoming disaster that very same day, he was in a restaurant with a journalist. um, it said they were doing, I don't know if I can say in a stream, but they were getting snuggly in the restaurant, and the guy didn't pick their phone until 8 p.m. So every emergency service, which was dependent on his orders, was inactive until it was too late in many occasions. Uh, Cars were getting flooded by water, ended 3, 4 streets down the waterway, and the dude was in the restaurant with the journalist, supposedly negotiating the giving her the direction of the regional TV station.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, so every help that could have gotten here and do something, evacuations and such, they were made too late because the dude was unreachable.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that is wild.
Bye.
Hello.
Oh hey, Never Right. Thanks for coming in.
Hi. Hi, Nero Riot. Nice to
Hi,
meet
hi.
Hey,
you.
Neural Riot.
Hello. Nice to meet you too.
How's your day going? Or yeah,
Well,
do you celebrate holidays or how are you spending today?
well, not really. Like, only like remotely, mainly like I don't know. So not. I haven't like done any special kind of food or anything, but talk to people that I like. I don't know. I've talked to a lot of people, but on the phone or via internet. That's basically what I've been doing.
Lots of socializing.
Yeah. As as someone with long COVID, I don't really feel I can afford the risk of getting another COVID infection. Yeah. So I do the socializing remotely instead.
Yeah, definitely.
And you?
I was gonna say, thanks a lot to Buff Forte also for subscribing, and yeah, totally. When it comes to long COVID, yeah, Holly and everyone here at the Silver Spook Cooperative, we're very COVID cautious. Thankfully, knock on wood, we don't have long COVID, and we, as far as we know, we haven't gotten it. So, yeah, totally get that. That's part of why I wanted to do this also, is because some, we haven't got to do a lot of in-person socializing with many of our family or friends, because a lot of them don't. We don't want to endanger ourselves because we have many disabled people already, many at-risk people inside our house. So yeah, totally get that. We're trying to socialize. That's part of what we're trying to socialize as much with the advanced technology of the telecommunications, like this internet, as we possibly can. And also good to meet you for the first time in on voice and on stream. You're right.
Yes. Same. Thanks for having me. Yeah. It's also like like disabled people and chronic illness is also something that's like sadly kind of it's even like forgotten amongst many like so-called leftists and others. it's a huge part of the population, like anywhere, but it's often not talked about or considered. Like accessibility and stuff is often there are many like events that claim to be like espousing certain values, but when like I ask them if they like, are you gonna require masking or at least ask people to mask? No, we're not doing that. And it's like, okay, thanks for not having me then.
Mm, that's not very considerate. And I could see how that could feel like like people like that excludes certain people while claiming to be inclusive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 'Cause I'm even before I had long COVID, I was immunocompromised. So yeah, and it's like it's not like it's also because I want to do these activisms, but yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, and it's even harder when you take in mind it's usually people who at least know it has to be done. Like the theory, they got it nailed. But when it takes more than the bare minimum effort, it all goes away.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, something like I think about like like how organizations like what's their division of labor like? For example, like I think about activism, there's different ways that you can do it. Like I know some of my favorite to do like as a group is like what they call like phone banking. Like if someone who did an action like ends up in prison, you can like get on a call and you just like call up the prison and demand the person's release. And you don't have to be concerned about like, oh, you have to be in person to kind of take an action, right? There's many things that you
Yeah,
can do.
yeah.
And I wish that organizations would find ways like that for people to participate in. Like maybe, like I know when like, because I used to be part of Black Alliance for Peace. I can no longer afford the membership, but they do have like a lot of useful activities that you could do. Like, let's say there's a campaign, like for example, out of Africa. So one's job is to write up, or like a team rather, a team's job to write up what the campaign looks like. What's the hashtags? What's the images? What are some like, press releases that don't really require you to be in person to do, but you can still be part of like a campaign. And so like I think more organizations need to think about what are some like behind the scenes work that people don't really see, but it's needed. Like people just don't end up at rallies or online campaigns just don't materialize out of nowhere. That's a lot of behind the scenes work and preparation. So like,
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
yeah, I'll end there. Or maybe you could demand a group like, hey, do you need someone to send emails?
Yeah, I mean, uh, I have done uh, mm, like that sort of like uh, that type of activism in the past mm, in different groups, like in because like I'm HIV positive, so I've done it in those kinds of groups,
Oh, nice.
and also like like eco activism. Uh, like I did some for Extinction Rebellion way back when and things like that. Yeah, I have done a lot of it for Palestine as well during the years, because that's I started like that's my first political activism. I was 7 when I participated in my first pro-Palestine demonstration. So while I might not feel safe doing that anymore, I do it in other ways. Also, like, I don't know, keeping the people that I know and have still can contact that is in Palestine or is in Gaza, and like also just updating them on what I know has mainly been the focus for the last, I don't know, 12 months, because I don't know, it also because I have friends in Gaza. It's I don't know, I have like done other things as well, but it's yeah, I don't know.
No, like each bit helps, right? We each have to do our part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish Holly and I we were at our first like big probably like in person being there for multiple days in the movement was like Occupy Wall Street, like I think I've told this story. We had the Ocu baby, where we had a 5 week old, and this is obviously way pre COVID, so we had a 5. We probably wouldn't do that now, but we had a 5 week old at the Occupy. It was actually deoccupy Honolulu because it was Hawaii's occupied by the United States Empire illegally. So, but it was part of the Occupy Wall Street movement. So yeah, that was a good experience. That was a formative experience for a lot of for us, and like just trying to we met a lot of different people there. I dressed up like a Monopoly man banker. I was just doing a whole bunch of research. I know this is a bit tangential, but I was like researching like Wizard of Oz, because in my game Neofeud 2, there's a bunch of Wizard of Oz references, and I was like, I just got the Monopoly game, and I was just thinking about like the populist, or just like the mass movement. A lot of that was like obviously against the big Wall Street banks and the big corporate, especially the East Coast, New York. Occupy Wall Street was on New York City's financial district, right? So, I remember I bought a bunch of Monopoly money, and Holly and I were there. Taking turns wearing. I think Holly was mostly wearing our 5 week old, and I was like covering like Monopoly money with blood, wearing the top hat with the pocket watch like Mr. Peanut, like the Monopoly man. And I was like writing songs, just like playing like random like song. Like I see a lot of people playing songs on TikTok now about related to the United Healthcare, and that it's a similar sort of energy, right? We're very upset at extremely rich people hurting all of us, and there are many of us, and there are very few of you, and you should be worried about that. And also we're very pissed off. And I remember like I wrote this song. It was called like Muammar Gaddafi should have been a banker. I think I played it on one of their streams. But I wrote it at Occupy Wall Street. I remember like being there playing it like after the Occupy, and YouTube has banned it because the United States and the West have no freedom of speech in their authoritarian regimes, and they actually deleted the whole video.
Oh,
yeah. So that was. I take it as a badge of. I'll stop after this. I take it as a badge of honor because as our there was a Soviet era communist general, admiral, I think, once said, if you're not taking flak, you're not over the target. So thank you, Google, for deleting my video, you coward. You're horrible, genocidal, imperialist bastards. The end.
It's always nice making them upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
Around that time, I was pretty involved also with the 15 May movements happening around here that ended with the creation of the Party Podemos. And I don't remember being scammed literally as when the all politicians were telling us just make a political party and get in elections, get through the system, and we did with all our goodwill. All the corruption, all the judges, all the judicial system, the press against the creation of the new party. We one of the first elections, it even was about to get the most voted party. And they started with all the bad press they could throw. Was it true or was it false? So they didn't win an election.
Did you
So
mention
much for
Podemos?
all that work.
Yeah, I was on the foundation of the party as an affiliate, not as any responsibility uh, platform, but I was pretty involved in the first step that was in the public squares. We organize circles where they try to make more direct communal action in the direct neighborhoods more than organizing a new state. It was more like collaboration networks and giving help to each other in whatever we could. But later it institutionalized because the message in the media was they needed to form a party and stop action in the streets, and
Mm.
people took that to heart and delegated in the party and stopped all action like 6, 8 months before or after that. And the movement stopped being something from the streets and become an institutionalized party. All collaborative action almost stopped except um, the rallies for the healthcare, public healthcare, and education, but most of the initiatives that were active in the public squares stopped in less than a year.
Oh, wow. And what happened to the people who were on the streets? Because it doesn't seem like everybody who decided to become an institutional party joined the party, or yeah, how did that affected people? Like who went to the party and who didn't? If my question makes sense. What happened to the different sections?
Yeah, take in mind the 2008 crisis hit people very hard in people less than or younger than 40 years old. There was an unemployment rate of more than 50%, which meant if you were walking the street, you have more possibilities of seeing an unemployed person than a person with a job. So people stop uh, being in the public squares and try to get on with their lives as better as they could. It's like the energy or the first spark got off, and people got on with their lives. The party was founded. We started with very much illusion and goodwill and energy, but the moment there was a like party image the media could demonize, let's say, media started saying very bad things. Such and such was a PDF file. Such and such embellished money. And most of these allegations they weren't even true. Such has business with Venezuela. The party was founded with money from Iran. Uh, and all conspiracy theories they could invent they throw at the party, and when it was a party and not a group of people, it's like the common folk, the people started seeing the movement and everything in a different light.
Mm, man, it's terrible because it makes me wonder like what were like their internal politics. But it's like, you know, it sounded like a pretty it had a possibility or was like a revolutionary formation while on the street. But it's like, how did that leave? It almost seemed or dissipated within the year that they just changed. It's like they changed direction or like objectives or something.
Hi
I
there.
see we have someone new. Hi.
Hey, welcome in, Zilla.
I
How you doing?
Yeah, we're doing good. We're just
Oh.
yeah, we're talking story all the left veteran stories from the back in the days. But yeah, Zilla is thanks for coming by. Zilla has been at least one of the Silver Spook events. Yeah, thanks for making some time though. How's it going there?
It's going great. It's been a wonderful day of, mostly Chinese food. Resident Jew, hi.
Mhm.
How are y'all doing? How's your mid-afternoon there?
Yeah, here we're
Hi,
doing.
Sila.
Yeah, we're doing good. We just we had our morning Christmas feasting time, and we got we did the whole Christmas tree thing with the presents and all the we have two little ones at the Silver Spook Cooperative, so
Oh.
they're happy with all of their Mario, Sonic. One of our children really wanted a knife. Uh, a small reasonably sized knife, and they're not like for it's just they're using it to make jewelry and stuff right now, actually, and a cut random.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so that's fun. Yeah, anyway, but yeah, we're just good. We're just hanging out, and yeah, we're just talking.
Just chilling.
Yeah, so just Big Teal. I'll just really quick there introduce themselves, but most of us here are like Big Teal is educator. We're all left of some kind. You're all like Silver Spook friends and family and community members. Victor is from Spain. Victor was just talking about trying to organize in Spain in the Podemos era, I think. And Norride is from Sweden, and is also involved. Was talking about dealing with long COVID and having troubles with things related to that. So anyway, yeah, that's yeah.
Hello.
So, hi, I'm Zilla. I live in Boston. I do sort of public education sort of work, and there's a lot of online organizing. And Silver Spook here is an amazing friend, an amazing person to work with. So
Aw.
I'm very pleased to be invited.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really great to have you on. I did yeah, I did. Zilla's working on some very cool projects. I think, well, like Civic Seed and trying to make better education, some kind of better
Yeah.
pathways towards education in the North America. So that's really good, good stuff. I like the Discord is also is yeah, cool people are in there.
I do what I can.
Yeah.
It was nice to meet you all.
Yeah, it's nice to finally meet you. I remember your debut stream when you first came on. Yeah, I guess I've only known you for your Greek history or like your critique of Greek antiquity rather.
Yeah. I mean that's a big part of what I do in terms of historical like education stuff. So I work with this organization called the Save Ancient Studies Alliance. And the whole point of it is to just like try every way we possibly can to allow people access to their own history and the history from around the world without like gatekeeping it behind academia. So like we provide a lot of like archeo gaming stuff where we play like video games and talk about the ancient studies stuff that's in it. And we make like modules for middle school teachers to use in their classrooms, and also provide like free databases of like what do I do if I want to like find ancient Greek texts and translation? Like, is there a resource for that? But it's not just Greek stuff. That happens to be my specialty. But there are people who do a lot of other things. So,
Wow,
That's
like
really cool.
yeah, actually, we have a conference a virtual conference, all online, all for free every summer. The call for papers just went out. If y'all are so inclined, you can go check it out. That's saveancientstudies.org.
I'll be an attendee. My specialty is not antiquity, but I've gotten like the like ancient like Byzantinian bug 'cause I'm like, what was happening in ancient Iran, like that period, you know? Because like
So much was happening in ancient Iran, ancient Mesopotamia. Like that's a big source of our knowledge of really ancient times. There are a lot of different cultures in that area because of the landscape. You know, it just really allowed a lot of different peoples to flourish in different directions. But you know, one thing I do want to emphasize is like ancient Near East and like ancient Europe, that's not all there is to the world, and that's not all there is to ancient studies by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot going on in especially like Mesoamerican archaeology right now. Like there's a lot of stuff going on that I'm just fascinated by. So I don't mean to plug my stuff. I'm just like trying to explain
no, it's
where I
all
am.
good. We're sharing. It's all good.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
was pretty
really
interesting.
Yeah, we're hoping to have some Spanish language content. It's surprisingly hard to get translators to like stick around and work with us though. So I mean that's probably because they have to work for free and you know. That's the problem with nonprofits is unless there's somebody big backing you, you don't got a lot to work with.
Hmm.
So we're almost entirely
Yeah,
volunteer.
and the problem with an increasing cost of living crisis means people have less. Yeah, and people need to work more to be able to eat, so they have less possibilities to do things like that, even if they would like to.
Indeed.
Hmm.
Yeah. I was just talking practicalities of universal basic income with someone I'm dating, and you know they're like, oh well, like you know it totally makes sense if you look at it from this like particular economic theory perspective, and I'm like, cool. I'm glad that there are like economic theories going around in in that space. that support the obvious necessities. I don't know.
No, you gotta compete.
It's not. I mean, yes, you can use the most sensible economic theories to realize that it's an obvious solution, but you don't really need that to see how how much benefit it will have. So, but yeah, I mean, still good, but feels a bit, yeah.
I mean, if whatever gets people to the right place, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
If we can convince people that there are other ways and they can still live their lives.
Or that like people are finally, even if it's not like because I think about who and how it would be implemented, but it's just far as like as an idea spreading across like the population. That's kind of like I was thinking like with that conversation, at least people are talking about it. Like I remember being a kid, that was not even a thing. I think if it was, if someone had brought it up, it would be like a joke. Like, what do you mean just give people money? Like, right? It seems like you're almost like doing charity work rather than, no, we understand that humans have material needs and that maybe that we should see that as like a necessity rather than it's something that capitalists get to lord over you to think like, oh, you must work for me in order to like earn your right to a house or to food and things like that. And so it's kind of one of those like slow crawl things where the general population is kind of like, oh, maybe we need to start rethinking things, even though I don't think the government anytime soon wants that. Like, how many times have we
Yeah, I
seen
mean,
like poverty drafts?
yeah, I don't know. Even so many governments seem to love to do austerity measures, even though it never leads to anything good. But yes, I mean, it has been. I think it has been a bit like people have that they have been like introduced to the concept more and more to be able to not just dismiss it as a kind of, I don't know, as a kind of fool's dream. But yes, on the topic of earning for capitalism, the phrase that is very normalized to earn a living is actually extremely vile and just anti-humanistic. You have, I mean, everybody who is alive. I mean, we have a right to life. You shouldn't have to earn your life. That is very. I don't know. That phrase never vibed with me.
And you're right, it's so normalized. Like, I hadn't realized for maybe half my life how internalized I had felt that, like, I had to earn my place. Like, why?
Yeah, the propaganda machine is very, very strong, and it's something very hard to break out the conditioning you have received all your life. And it takes years of studying and a lot of effort to break bad habits.
Yes, and I mean, as you said, the propaganda machine. It is a very, very well-funded propaganda machine that has been and is still going on, and it has been going on for centuries. So it's, in one way, I can feel that it's like strange or weird that it's like so many people are still stuck in this capitalist framework and like yes, mode of living or thinking about things, but at the same time it's like, well, there is constant propaganda all around us to support this, so it's also not weird at all.
Yeah, the thing I find amusing is most people, even conservatives, seem to recognize some flaws of capitalism, but they attribute them to leftism or communism or some other things, just because they were conditioned to think so. I seen a meme just earlier that showed the most disgusting pizza you could imagine, with three slices of pepperoni and a little bit of cheese. And the headline was, how a pizza will be if a communist government made it. But it was a pizza made by a capitalist business, and they have branding, they have the price of the pizza in the box, and something. So you could see the problem, but why are you telling the problem is any other thing?
Yeah. I just keep hearing that one absolutely memeable moment of like, this is the future liberals want. And then it's like a totally normal, peaceful thing. Like, what is
Yeah.
wrong?
What's so sad is like the propaganda doesn't have to be that good. Like, who makes that? I'm sorry. That pizza's cracking me up. And
No, yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean,
so go. Yeah, like it's just like it's just like a low bar. Like it's like it's not it doesn't have to even be like sophisticated. It's just like it's like almost like the absurdity or like the presentation of communism as absurd, even though it's the logic of the capitalist. It's like their absurd logic. But some not somehow, but there it's like I guess like okay, so I'm reading okay, so this idea is coming from Edward Said's or Orientalism that I've been rereading, and only because it's a hard copy and I really don't like reading online. And I'm like, okay, let's just read a book that you have a physical copy of. And he talks about like how Orientalism as a school of thought, how it got constructed. The one thing that stood out to me was like the pedagogic aspect of the ideology in the sense that it presents ideas in the context of like it's instructing you, right? It's like putting up this like relationship, this relationship between like the audience as student and the person who's doing the messaging as an instructor that I guess like you're trusting to tell you about the world and how and what ideas that you use to see it. So when people are being shown these images from media, from politicians, it's this relationship that they have where it's like they don't necessarily question it, but see it as like, oh, this is what this idea looks like. And so I'm going to think within this framework or schema about this idea of communism. And I'm just like, seeing like how we're just very vulnerable because we trust our media so much. Like it's like we haven't learned, or many people haven't learned how to not just be skeptical, but look at an image and say, hey, where does that come from? What is it like? What's that idea? Does it look like that? Does it look like that somewhere else? How do other people do this communism thing? It's just like this, we take it in and like, okay, that's the image. But it's like, yeah, it's like terrible. Like I've seen Al Qassam Brigade do better pizzas, okay?
yeah, but I also think that part of the role, the more like so obvious or like bad PR or propaganda, like some of the Israeli Hasbara, for example, it's like it's just so bad. I think part of one thing that provides is some people can then go and look at that and say, oh, that's obviously propaganda. I'm so clever, I figured it out, and then not look further than that. Because they then believe that the propaganda is mostly that bad and that obvious. I don't know if this makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Most people think, oh, I can't be caught by that because I can see it so clearly somewhere else. But the reason you can see it so clearly somewhere else is because you don't live in the environment where it makes sense. The propaganda that's aimed at you is much harder to see because it's designed, like Big Teal was saying, to sort of jive with your preconceived notions, with your culture and the authorities that you trust.
Yes.
And especially like here in the US, they just don't teach critical thinking about media as much as they should. And like every time that the teachers try to implement it, it gets pushback. It gets pushback from conservatives. So like it's a constant struggle to try and get people to even just question what they're hearing. I'm sorry. I feel like I might have cut you off. I'm so sorry.
No, it's completely fine. I think it's also is that there is just this. It's so much propaganda. So, and in part due to them, like they're throwing anything and everything at the wall to see what sticks. And as you said, you because there is so much of it, you are gonna see some as blatant, and you're gonna miss a lot because of your preconceived notions, because of how you're raised, etc., etc. But yes, media literacy is important, and it's not being taught.
Yeah, I mean, you're just bringing up the propaganda. I think it was Claire Danes who has been on the home. I haven't watched this Homeland show, but she plays a CIA agent, and then she was recently on what was it, Stephen Colbert, and then she just mentioned, oh yeah, before we start the show every season, we go hang out with the CIA at the at Georgetown, and every year it changes, it's a little bit different. What kind of stories and what kind of stories we should tell through mainstream TV and movies. And it's really great to be that close. And most journalists and TV and movies, they're basically written by the CIA. And then Colbert is like immediately jumps out of that question, and it's like the propaganda. It's like I spent about I remember thinking in that moment, I was like, thank you, Claire Danes, for giving it all away, because I spent like 2 years critiquing every Hollywood movie from Captain Star Spangled Underpants to Super America. I'm sorry, Superman. And it's like the propaganda. It's everything. It's like it's in the education. It's in. I mean, it's not just in the Haspar. It's not just in the Fox. It's in MSNBC. It's in everything. It's in the movies and entertainment. Ayn Rand wrote the motion picture screen guide for the preservation of American values. The CIA and the State Department, they determine like what will be seen, what will be the ultimate, like what will be the Overton window, what will be allowed to be discussed, and so if you like one of my professors, he was actually a Hawaiian. He actually produced for Arsenio Hall and Snoop Dogg in LA for a bit, and there was a purge. Basically, it was a purge in Hollywood of a lot of like left leaning, black, brown, like a lot of the stuff that was happening in the 90s. There were more critical movies. Romeo Must Die, I think he was one of the co-producers on that, which was an Asian guy and a black woman goth Aaliyah stars. And then right around there was this purge of all these people, and he actually did his PhD going back and studying the entire history of Hollywood talking about Hawaii. And he had there's Pentagon and U.S. government, federal government notes about how to depict Hawaii 5-0, right? So I'm a native Hawaiian, so I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And it says exactly, right? It's like every decision, when Hawaiians on screen, make them look backwards. all the criminals must be Asian. All the cops are good. I mean, 50% of all TV shows in the West and the US are cop shows. So obviously, cops solve crimes. Two white guys arresting Asians, Hawaiians, Filipinos are servants. It's like it's written down, and the Pentagon, the generals, like Douglas MacArthur, is in the room, right, talking about this is how we will, this is how we will have hegemony now, and so like it's all of it is propaganda, and not necessarily every single thing you say at all times is scripted by a little, NED homunculus in your head, but kind of like somewhere along the lines. And if you don't kowtow, the self-censorship is actually the most powerful, because you kind of just know if you step out of the lines, right? If you pass this particular point, whether that's in academia, whether that's in corporate world, whether that's in the even the nonprofit world, which I worked in, definitely in the government world, you step past this particular line, they don't even have to say, they don't have to like have like the capitalist party come and punish you, but you just don't say that because you want to try to get tenure, or you want to keep your job, because you got to pay $300,000 of student loans and $500,000 of healthcare to Universal Death Care. I'm sorry, United Health. Anyways,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the end of that rant.
But when it comes to police propaganda, that has a long and late like history of doing it kind of above board and in the open, like the earliest like cop shows in the United States at first didn't directly cooperate with the cops, but early on started doing that, and CSI, etc. But even way before that, but they are like signed off by the police. They every episode is
Yeah, and like anytime you
also
want to
there's
use
propaganda about from the what's that? There's this kids show about like
Paw
dogs.
Patrol.
Yeah, that's propaganda.
Yes. But yeah, like anytime that a show or a movie wants to use any kind of military looking equipment, they have to go through the US military, basically. Like, you're watching something like Stargate, which you don't think has anything to do with anything, but like they're like in the show, they're part of the US military, so they have to go through like actual US military people in order to make that show. It's like, oh, heck. Like even the most far-fetched thing, it all has to it all has to go through somewhere.
It's very like entrenched in TV and movies. Yeah.
Yeah, this may be a little dumb, but from time to time, I like to read the Wikipedia page of cognitive biases. It's very illustrating in all the techniques they use to implant ideas in people. And maybe not all work on you personally, but some will. And things like repetition, anchoring the first point of view you will get, the bandwagon effect, that some people you just naturally go with what they perceive as the most popular option in any issue. So if you project an image that most people prefer something, there's a lot of people that don't judge and go with the flow. And there's some other things. The survivorship bias, the thing of prices ending in 0.99 to appear a little bit cheaper, and there's a lot of tricks that industry that is marketing and businesses and the any industrial complex used to implant things on your head.
Constantly.
Yeah,
It's a lot of advertising. And advertising for many things, including the status quo. And there's no shame in acknowledging that some of them work on you, because some of them work on everyone. Depending on the context, like there's always going to be stuff that'll hit you. It's like when they talk about scams, like, you know, you look at somebody else getting scammed and you're like, how did you fall for that? But then there's going to be one that works with your brain. It's just a matter of
and works
connection.
in that context. Like if you're in a certain emotional mood or something has happened or anything, then you're more vulnerable to certain scams. So even if on a normal day you might not fall for it, things happen. So
Yeah.
but also like I remember as a kid, I heard people saying that, advertising doesn't work on me, and I was like, well, of course it does. It's a huge industry spending tons of money just doing advertising. If it didn't work on so many people, or then they wouldn't do it. But yeah, I was got confused by
And
that.
the
Sorry.
volume that is being made, the amount, it's very important because there's 8 billion people in the world. Maybe that particular action doesn't work on you, but it's going to work on a lot of people anyways.
I just want to say real quick, you can keep going with this, but aloha kakahiaka if it's in the morning for you, or this probably not actually. Aloha though to our fellow Hawaiian manapua there. Manapua is a great food. It's too many carbs for me in my in my age where I need to eat less of them. But good to see our diaspora Hawaiian in the chat. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I think we're talking about propaganda still.
It's an important conversation, especially during wartime. We gotta be able to learn how to recognize it, what's its strategies, what's its techniques, what's it's trying to get us to believe, and things like that. So I'm all about this conversation because I felt like as a kid, I didn't really know. Like it was like this scary word, and now I'm like, okay, we need this. If we're gonna, ideologically survive, we're gonna have to understand this.
Everything that is said, everything that is written, everything that is illustrated comes from a point of view. And if they aren't telling you what that point of view is, then you need to be extra careful because they're hiding it.
Yeah, and just the notion that when everything has a bias. Everything was written from a perspective, and so, and yes, if they try to hide it, then it's cause for concern. But you should really be like aware of that at all times, basically, when you are consuming, especially when you're consuming news, but also any kind of like social commentary or
Any media, really.
Yeah.
Like one thing that is like has been a big influence on my life and my career is the so-called impartiality of history. And like, so I have a background in teaching Greek and Roman stuff, and one thing I really like is the historians, but like a lot of people they look at, I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but like the two big Greek historians are Herodotus and Thucydides. And Herodotus, they're like, haha, this guy is full of nonsense. He's talking about fish that eat rings and ants the size of groundhogs that dig up gold, and like this guy's full of nonsense. And then they get to Thucydides and they're like, oh, everything here must be literally true. Because by comparison, like he's writing like a modern journalist almost. But he's being so careful not to tell you things like the fact that he was in the war he's writing about.
Wow.
You know, and
Yeah.
and like to get students to see that just because it feels less partial doesn't mean it is.
Yeah.
Those one of those things that's just really hard to make yourself aware of all the time, especially in something like journalism or history where you want to be able to take it as just the facts.
Yeah. But it's also like, yeah, when growing up, I often heard the phrase that history is written by the winners, but at the same time, a lot of history was presented to me as like fact, without without having that critical like, who did write this? How did we come to these conclusions, etc.
Yeah. And like something as basic seeming as a history textbook can be such a powerful impact. And we almost never think about who writes the textbooks, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you can see like certain kind of, I don't know, extreme examples of that, like when they're trying to legislate so that you cannot mention race in when you are talking about like the Tulsa race massacre, and it's like that's a very blatant example of trying to do revisionism, but there is constantly so much of it, or like I'm from Sweden. I grew up in Sweden, so like the history of Sweden, there was a lot of things that I was not taught in elementary and what would be like basically middle school, that I found out in other ways that I think are critical to how Sweden and all of Europe developed, and like how the cultures that exist. Like it was not so much mentioned. There was a tiny mention of like, oh yeah, we had a short period of eugenics being popular, but didn't really say that. For example, we basically had the first eugenics institute in the whole world. We were big proponents of eugenics, and it's basically just mentioned slightly a bit, or like how we did settler colonialism against the Sami, and things like that. So it's also a lot, as you say. I mean, what is mentioned and what is very intentionally left out.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
remember I was a kid in 1992. I was 8 years old, and that was the 500 years anniversary of Columbus travel to America. What I was taught was basically Columbus was Indiana Jones with a boat that had great adventures there, uh, gave them civilization, and everybody was fun and adventures, travel, beautiful, exotic women, everything was fine. And then I studied some more and was horrified because what I learned as a kid was totally, totally different from the truth.
Yeah.
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 Similar. Very similar. So I grew up in Texas. And we had we had some interesting things in our mandatory Texas history classes. Things that I, later learned were just not only incorrect but outright backwards sometimes. Like, I don't know how common the story of Texas secession is outside the US, but there was a brief period of time when Texas was its own country. And as you might expect, it was a totally failed state. It had nothing going for it except a bunch of like, we don't like Mexico or the US, rar people, who were largely terrible. And they basically had to beg to be let into the US, but I was actively taught that the US begged us to join.
Oh.
What? What nonsense is this? Like, it never made sense. Like, why would they care?
Perception.
But I think honestly the biggest disservice that kind of education gave to me was the impression that indigenous peoples were gone from the land. That it was a great
Yeah, I was about
tragedy,
to
but
say.
they're the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, to hide their settler, I guess to hide their settler identities. Like, we didn't do
And also to
anything,
hide
we're
that it's
just
an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
that too.
It's like slavery is over and colonialism is over and therefore not your problem because nobody's around who's still dealing with it. And it's like, wow, those are some lies. Wow.
But it also
Yeah.
does the job of dehumanizing the people that they're trying to get us to ignore, right? While they do their colonial practices on those people.
Oh yeah.
Something
Yeah.
I'm also noticing, it's also a way of dehumanizing ourselves to others.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Because if those people don't exist, well, when one happens to be in front of you, you're like, wait, what? Like, you're not a person. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like,
Yeah, I
it
mean,
just, it filters out.
yeah, like in Hawaii, it's
Yeah,
kind of weird
and it's
because
like,
we were taught. Oh, I'll let you go this, but yeah, in Hawaii, I mean, basically, we were taught. That it's weird because like half of my family. It's a weird place because Hawaii is so contested. In the world, but it's as a U.S. illegal occupation. But it's kind of like there are Hawaiians that like teach their own children. There have been secretly because it was illegal to speak Hawaiian and pass Hawaiian culture. I mean, you can see the like I don't know. I feel like a lot of my life is like watching that. The actual struggle is it's the informational narrative. Global conflict, but it's happening inside of everybody's head. Like in Hawaii, where some families are secretly like trafficking their own Hawaiianness. It's like smuggling the little red. I mean, the red isn't native, but also communist because indigenous people were, including native Kanaka Maoli people, and so it's kind of like trying to traffic your own history into your children, as the United States is stealing your children through CPS, through residential schools in Hawaii. Every school in Hawaii is a boarding school, actually, public, private, and charter. That's never mentioned. Also, if they do mention settler colonialism in the United States, they don't talk about every school in Hawaii is on occupied, stolen Hawaiian land, and every one of them is forced to. Every single one was a de-Hawaiianization. It was a kill the Indian, save the man school, including the private. I went to private Catholic school myself, but so it was weird watching like everybody, like, cause some family members, like even like within the same family, would be like two different narratives of history. Like my mom is like Hawaiian, Portuguese, we're all like many different things. That is like Japanese, Japanese, Caucasian, also Hawaiian. My grandpa is actually the note taker, minute taker. He worked at a Hawaii newspaper typesetting. He worked at a Hawaii newspaper as a typesetter, but he's also secretly the communist note taker for the Communist Party in Hawaii. In Hawaii, that was hidden from
Right.
all of our family. Hid that our entire life, right? Because they all wanted to be part. I mean, they were part of it. They was terrified because the United States, there's a Red Scare. Also, some of my family are Japanese. They were in internment camps, right? So the Asian side were
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
want to be disappeared forever and be, extincted, holocausted if that was to happen, right? So my parents grew up like in terror of more of their family, the Asian ones, or like more of the family could go into a concentration camp. Grandpa was communist and never said that. And there's all this tension between, and he was a Hawaiian, part white, part Portuguese. Like his dad was a horrible murderous settler cowboy from Texas. Actually, probably we don't actually know where he's from. He came and he killed Native people, including probably his wife, and took land from Native people. But his son was a part Hawaiian Communist Party note taker, right? That was like part of the IWW, was part of all these struggles secretly, and then there was other family members are also Catholic. So there's all this Catholic, we just have to, there's all this Catholic guilt stuff. There's the Catholic eugenics, Catholic genocide, where the Catholic Native people in so-called Canada, Catholic priests were the number one Native people eliminators residential schools that Canada is currently investigated for genocide, and the UN is currently still after them. But in Hawaii, we also, my mom went to Catholic school where they beat the Hawaiian language out of her. But then I have cousins and friends who were like, they never went to those schools, and they went to a school, but the parents passed the true history of Hawaii down to them and said everything that you're seeing, everything you're being taught in school is illegitimate. Hawaii is a country, the United States is occupying, it's just a military base for them. And so it was like half, all of our families were like split in half, and it's also like from people from every continent. Like there were Asians. I also grew up in Chinatown, so we had Chinese, we had Vietnamese, we had Laotian, we had culturally, I did Chinese lion dance. Right, we did Chinese lion dance, but we went to Catholic church, and my grandpa was like a Shinto fascist imperial warrior who walked around Honolulu with a samurai sword, and he threatened to kill people. Right, but then like the son, or like the that guy's son-in-law was a Communist Party organizer, and he also sang Danny's Boy. So he's like, so there's like an Irish connection also that goes like way back, probably. I don't know how far back. He's not straight from the IRA to Hawaii, but it was like, he was definitely of a different bent. And so anyway, but long story short, all of that was just so confusing. And then when you go to school in Hawaii, it's just like we had to say the Pledge of Allegiance plus sing America the Beautiful. And like there were 3 patriotic songs. This is part of the forced Americanization, forced worship of America and capitalism in Hawaii, especially for Hawaiian and Asian and Pacific Islander students. They made us, it's more than like in South Korea. I just saw South Korea they have to praise the Israeli flag and the American flag, but in Hawaii you have to praise every single day the American flag plus sing 2 extra patriotic songs to forcefully Americanize all the kids. Now of course they failed because I exist, right? And I was like, that's a bunch of bullshit, and obviously I do anti-imperial and Hawaiian sovereignty actions that we do, but yeah, it's just so that's just my experience with that crap.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
but I mean,
that's extremely relatable. I'm not at all saying that I have the indigenous experience, but the being told to praise the flag and to sing these songs and to reify yourself in this colonial project in the way that it sees you. Definitely I have that experience of when I went to a private Jewish middle school. They made us sing the national anthem and the national anthem of the US and the national anthem of Israel, and like it was a thing. And it took me a while to figure out why that felt so wrong, because I mean, I was going to a Jewish middle school, like whatever, right? But eventually I start, like, we're learning about the Holocaust and we're learning about this conflation of the Jewish people as a whole with like a government that is outside, or an organization that is outside of whatever country you live in and whatever citizenship you have, and this sort of the Jew as evil because they're always thinking of some other place as their true allegiance. And I'm like, we're just playing right into that. This is just that same propaganda but being taught to us, and now you see that inevitable outcome as the genocide in Gaza has forcefully brought to the forefront of people's minds. Not going to say it wasn't there before, because it certainly was, but like it's just so difficult for like the official narrative here in the US is that, you know, Jews and Muslims are at each other's throats. And then you look at the actual like Jews and Muslims in the US and we're like, solidarity, man, end the war. This is nonsense. You know?
Yeah, and I mean, there is so much like inherent um, contradictions in the official narrative in the US, at least from my understanding. Like it's uh, both, as you say, like when you learn about like World War II and Nazi Germany and like how wrong it is to claim that a certain actions from a small group would represent, like, say, all Jewish people, but then you're also like having to praise Israel as the Jewish state and as it's eh. But also on the topic of like the Pledge of Allegiance, that is like on its face, even for non-minorities, etc. It is like there's a lot of red scare about how communist states would like indoctrinate people, and I'm like, but you say the Pledge of Allegiance all the time. But I would also imagine that as someone indigenous or of or like someone who is like any kind of minority, etc., it would feel like it's a double thing then, because it's like not only having to praise this nation and pledge allegiance to it constantly that you live in, but it's also like the obvious oppressor of yourself and like the people around you. Yeah.
I gotta say, even as somebody who grew up considering themselves white and part of the majority in most ways, that always felt real weird to me. Like I think I stopped saying it at some point, and I just you know stood there. And thankfully, I never got in trouble for it. But like, it's creepy, right? It's creepy.
Yeah, it is
Fascist.
creepy. When I first heard of it, like I don't know, I was I don't know 9 or 10 or something. I thought it was like some kind of joke. I didn't think it was actually a thing. It took me a while to realize that, oh no, they're actually doing this. Okay.
Normal is what you grow up with, right?
Yeah. I mean, uh, it's in a way also so kind of similar to how many flags, how many American flags there are in American culture. It seems, at least to me, that it's a very common theme, just like being in the background, being like everywhere basically. And it's like, what do you have to prove? Is it that they like it feels very like having to shout, if you have to shout that you are like native to a land, as it would as a flag could represent or such, if you have to constantly shout it, then perhaps there is something wrong with that narrative. I don't know.
Yeah, it belies, I think, a lot of insecurity the same way that toxic masculinity does, right? Like it's like if you gotta shout that loud, what's worrying you about it?
Yeah.
I will say that thankfully up here in the Northeast there are a lot fewer flags than there were in Texas. That's something I don't miss.
But what you could find in the Northeast, oddly enough, are some Confederate flags, which is even much scarier.
Oh, it's so
if you're in the
weird.
North.
It's so weird. We definitely did not have a lot of those in Texas. There were a lot of Texas flags. A lot of people, like, there are still people who want to do the Texas as a state thing and think it's a great idea. Like as its own country. Like,
aren't there like in Texas and in other states, like they have basically like dismissed certain of the which amendments are there? They have like basically overridden some of the amendments that are supposed to protect like personal. Like they claim that because they're near the border, they can like search people, etc. That is actually like against the Constitution. I don't know.
so
not remembering right
I
now.
mean, to get technical about it, it's not that they're overwriting the Constitution, it's that they're taking liberties granted to them from the permission of the people in the federal government. Like when the Department of Homeland Security was instituted, while George W. Bush was in office, a lot of those changes happened then.
Yeah, right.
So like it's just like, oh well, we'll grant you an exception so that you can do the horrible thing that you were probably secretly doing anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So like it's like when the Supreme Court just recently overturned our abortion protections federally, and a lot of states had laws that essentially went back into effect immediately once the federal protection was removed.
Yeah.
So like it's that kind of thing. It's more loopholes than it is directly saying, "Oh, we're not going to listen to the Constitution," because that rhetoric contradicts in a way that they don't like. But it certainly defies the spirit, if not the letter.
Yeah.
If you even want to adhere to a document that decided that it was okay that some people were only worth 3/5 of a person.
Yeah, I find that a bit like how much the Constitution is upheld as some kind of almost like a religious document in the United States, and it's like a lot of things have progressed and changed since then. Perhaps it wouldn't be like it wouldn't be wrong to, I don't know, not go around and be like acting like it's a holy document. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of it does have to do with how young the United States is as an entity, like as a unified entity. It's only 200 years old. And like I think the fact that the combination of its colonial nature and its relative youth compared to a lot of pre-existing nations of various origins, I think it does lead to a certain amount of I want to call it bravado, but that's not derogatory enough. Machismo?
Yeah.
Authoritarianism.
Yeah, for sure. And there is, especially now, like you were saying, there's especially right now a Christo-fascist strain that is coming to the fore. There's always been there, but like it feels stronger now to me than it did. I can't say I have a clear perspective on it. But boy, there sure are a lot of religious right folk. That whole thing with the Bible and the Constitution together in one document sort of thing that's going around now is like,
whoa, yeah.
Like Sounds like they're like Bibi Netanyahu's relatives or something, right? He's always quoting or citing the Torah as why he's committing genocide in Palestine.
Which is nonsense from a Jewish religious perspective, by the way. Just to put it out
No,
there.
thank you for saying that, because like thinking about things we had to learn because we were never taught through propaganda was Zionism. I was like, wait, this has always been here, Zionism. It's been here
Yeah,
for like over a
so
century.
Zionism
What?
is such a complicated term too.
Well, I'm talking about, okay, right,
Yeah.
you're right. So
Yeah.
I should like clarify, like definitely Herzl's, but not just like Herzl, but like even Balfour was considered a
Oh
Zionist. So
yes. Oh
it's like this
yes.
it's like this Anglo-European kind of like, I want to say Jewish, but not Jewish in the sense of like religious, but people who use Judaism for like a political agenda, not just solely for religious purposes, right? Because I had to understand that the Jewish community in Europe were very diverse, well, or politically, culturally diverse people, and Herzl only represents a certain segment of that. And yeah, I was like, oh, this is some old school stuff. Like I had to like it made me relook at like World War One, for example, because that's how far back this stuff goes. Like
Yeah.
Balfour got the nickname for Bloody Balfour, and he was an avid Zionist, and him and Herzl, not Herzl, I forget who connected him to Herzl, because it wasn't Herzl who he wrote the letter
Oh,
to. It's like
right.
it's like what do they call it?
The Balfour
Like the
Declaration.
Zionist, no, like the Zionist World Agency. They actually have a name. They've been
Oh,
around since like the early 1900s actually. Either the Zionist Agency, or they're called the Agency for like their nickname. I could look it up. And that's like kind of organization that met with Balfour and therefore linked up with Herzl, and like just trying to figure that out, and like how they had early designs. And I'm like, wow. It's just like I feel like it's been something that's been so in front of you, right? Even Hasbro had to learn that, like, but it's always been there. It's been there for so long, and it's been in our faces. And it's not until like Operation Al-Aqsa Flood in Palestine that the Palestinian Liberation Movement performed last year, that's like, wait a minute, what is this thing? Because I feel like it's always told in passing, like you hear the word, but then no one says anything about it. And when you do ask, they're like, well, what do you mean? That's whatever. Right? I'm like, I don't know. And
yeah.
so,
There's such a complex history there, and like one key piece that I think a lot of people miss is the white supremacy of it. Um, like you were pointing
Yeah.
out, like this isn't just white Jews in Europe. This is particularly a subset of both Jews and Gentiles in Europe who are looking to pour all of the Jews in the world into one small space for actually quite a variety of reasons, most of which are get them out of everywhere else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
like
mean
the sheer gall of the way that they carved up the Middle East and then shoved as many Jewish people into this one little slice as possible. Like, oh, there's no way for that many people to coexist in a region where they weren't
and
before. But they just wanted
they
all the
say,
Jews out
yeah,
of everywhere else, you know?
yeah, I
like
do.
in Britain, for example, they were really keen on that part, getting the Jews
Mm-hmm.
out
Mm-hmm.
of Britain. That was a major reason to support it, and like that, for example, Churchill was liking a lot of Zionist ideas. But they say or said a land without a people for a people without a land. And it's like, wait, but there was like
But there were people.
more than 1 million people living there, actually.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
And like, yes, Jews were originally from that region a long time ago, and there were Jews living there. Still today, there are Jews who are native to that region from before the colony existed. But population displacement is always going to cause horrifying chaos. The way to fix anti-Semitism is not to get all of the Jews into one ethno-state. That's not going to fix it.
Yeah, no, they also like in the early 20th century, there were Zionists wrote about and did a lot of propaganda that was very much anti-Semitic, to claiming that's the only way to transform Jewish people from weak and feeble was to do this Zionism, to create this very much fascist-like strong man. I mean, it looks almost farcical if you look at it today, and very much like this whole toxic masculinity, this whole also very white European man ideals. But yeah, when I first started learning how some of the anti-Semitic tropes were perhaps not did not perhaps not originate from Zionists, but was very much um, uh, spread by, which was also like an eye opener for me to yeah, it made me go back and read stuff with a different lens.
There are a lot of people that I've heard in the last year or so, particularly, who will say things like, "Oh, we were the victims of the Holocaust. We're immune from this." And I'm like, "No, you're not. No, you're not. Being a persecuted person or from a persecuted group does not make you immune to fascist thought. That's not how that
It doesn't
works."
give you permission to do the same thing to other people. It's not like you get a free. If you are from a group of people who are victims of a genocide, you don't get a free do a genocide card.
No, that's not how it works.
That's the
Absolutely.
propaganda, no?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We're right back to that.
Yeah.
That's the propaganda. But like what I find so, I don't know, like absurd or discomforted, disturbed. I find so disturbed is the exploitation of the Holocaust, right? That was an actual tragedy as something to exploit for a narrow agenda of colonization, right? I can't always wrap my mind around like what kind of evil batshit craziness is that?
It's a combo of propaganda and ruthless authoritarians. Like, I don't believe that someone like BB believes his own shit. Not for a minute. I don't think
something.
I don't think he cares. I think his whole agenda is to protect BB.
Yeah.
To rule the world. I think that's the same for Trump, right? He doesn't care. He's not actually anti-trans in that he cares one whit about trans people. He's anti-trans because it gives him a lever. It gives him somebody to point his people at and say, here, hate them. They're the enemy.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it any less harmful. In fact, it often makes it worse because you can't reason with that.
Yeah.
But it's that way all over the world. The people who want to rule the world badly enough to hurt other people, this is how they work. This is how they've always worked.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really matter who the convenient other group that you can point at to give you political power. They don't really care about them in particular. It's a useful tool that has been used, as you said, historically in many occasions, and it has taken many different targets. One of them being Jewish people throughout Europe.
Yeah, those attacks are usually targeted towards some innate qualities that some people can change. Be it ethnicity, sexuality, anything that is core to your personality, and it's better if you can't hide. So it's like the trope color coded for your convenience. Um, in a movie where all the villains have a color scheme and the protagonists have another different color scheme. So in the battle, you identify them quickly and have a quick visceral gut reaction against them as soon as you catch those small clues, right? Uh, they want to target those attacks to those qualities because it makes easier for them to camouflage when people start to get to their through their techniques. As soon as people are aware of the problematic, um, with some things like whiteness and maleness being the default, they could switch the discourse in political matters that are opinion, but they couldn't hide their skin color or their sexuality or those other qualities, right? So
Yeah, it's immutable traits that
yeah,
are
yeah,
those people. So yeah, they can because they cannot change them. They cannot. They are very convenient targets, and also, as you say, like when it comes to something like skin color, it's immediately visually apparent as well, which adds another layer on top of it.
right.
Yeah. And then you can manufacture traits too, once you have people in that mindset. Like when you
Yeah.
talk about like Stalinist Russia, if you're not part of the if you're not like actively participating in the Communist Party, you must be a spy. You get
Wait, was
reported
that
on.
Yeah,
really
of
a
course.
thing?
Mhm.
Wait. This is news to me. Someone put me on about the Stalin policy.
Yeah, like so it was mandatory that you be part of the Communist Party. And Stalin was very active in getting people to snitch on anyone who voiced anti-communist sentiments, and a lot of those people got sent to gulags. Stalin killed a lot of people. And like this is why people are scared of communism, is because they associate it with this. They associate it with this authoritarian version where Stalin was like, "Oh yeah, communism. Sure. As long as I'm at the top."
Wait, were these anti-communist other capitalists, or were these like, do you know who were the people?
Oh,
Like, what
like
were their
Russian people.
positions, or
Like Russian
were
people
they
who
peasants?
Yeah, like political opponents, peasants, like there's a whole thing. There was a state of fear, and like this is the same authoritarian thing that you get every time that something like this happens. Of like at first it's like, oh, those people with an obvious difference are bad, and then once those people are no longer around, well, you need a new target, so you manufacture one. So like you can run through a few minorities for a while, but eventually you're going to come down to, well, who's not loyal, or who's not loyal enough. This happened in Germany as well.
Or like the original Big Red Scare in the United States, I
Yeah,
suppose.
McCarthyism,
Yeah, right.
absolutely the same. They're arresting anybody with communist sympathies. What does communist sympathies mean? That's the point.
Yeah,
It could mean
I
whatever.
remember when I flew over the United States, landed there, and etc. You have to fill out, and there was, are you or have you ever been a member of any communist parties? Was one of the questions I had to fill in.
Is it still?
And are you a terrorist? This was quite some time
That's
ago.
a really
This was
useful question to ask.
because all terrorists would say yes, you would check that little checkbox. But yeah, you had to. They asked me if I was a terrorist, and it's like, yeah. Of course, I'm gonna fill in that I'm a terrorist. But yeah, but also like general questions about if I had partook in like political activism at all, regardless of the like left or right or whatever, what have
Gosh.
you. And also, so if I had read certain books, like if I had read Das Kapital, was one of the questions.
What? When
Yeah.
was this? Oh my god.
Who's
This
who's
was
asking
like
this?
2003 or something. So yeah, the United States asked
I
me when
laugh
I
because
was
otherwise I cry.
when I landed in what is it, Newark Airport to get another plane to continue traveling to South America, but still I had to fill in all of that information.
Wow.
Some of it like are you a terrorist? It's like, or well, it was actually, are you or have you ever been a member of any terrorist organizations? But I mean, yeah.
I guess they wanted to know if you were the moderate rebel or the moderate terrorist.
Oh yeah, you should have said
yes.
HTS. You know, if you had chopped thousands of innocent people, then America will put you on CNN and you can get he him pronouns.
Funny,
rainbow
but it's
flag.
funny.
Al Qaeda.
But yeah, no, I
Number one. Go, sorry.
no, continue.
Yeah, I was just saying, Al Qaeda is good now. You know, actually killing tons of ethnic minorities, head chopping Christians, women that don't wear the specific kind of head covering. You know, you'll find as long as you do, you know, as long as you do the genocide and as long as you do the terrorism America wants,
And plan on implementing free market policies, which they have stated that they are going to.
Yeah, somebody said like it's Millet in Syria, you know.
Millet.
Oh,
Yeah. I lived in Buenos Aires for 1.5 years or something, and yeah, prior to the election, but also afterwards, I've heard I have friends there who were scared before and are still and very, very angry. It's going as one would assume. Yeah.
Oh, you lived in South America for a while.
Yeah. Almost 2 years in Buenos Aires. I when I was like 18, 19, I got a job in Buenos Aires from when I was living in Sweden. So that's why I flew over the United States, because that was the flight that they had paid for, which took like 30 hours instead of flying like directly, or more or less directly, which when I flew home, I flew to France instead, and that took a lot less time. But yeah, no, it was an interesting experience. And apparently it was weird that I wasn't really scared before I left, and never realized why I should have been that. Like other like friends and some family were like, "Aren't you scared to fly to like on your lonesome to a whole other continent?" I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I didn't speak any Spanish, which that was a bit like.
That would be scary.
Yeah, that was one part of the like the uneasiness sort of. If I otherwise I was more like just excited.
Yeah, I mean, like I have flown to various other continents on my own and not been scared. Various other countries, but I always either spoke the language or was meeting somebody there. So
Yeah, I mean, I had spoken to the people at the job from Sweden. They did an interview with me, and I did speak to them before I left, etc. So I had some clue. But yeah, uh, me, I don't know. It's also like I, I, I figured up. I mean, because at the core, people are generally basically kind of very. I mean, at the core, humans are humans. So I don't know.
yeah, I think people generally underestimate how much people want to help each other, and the most fearful among us are oftentimes the loudest about that kind of thing. Like, oh, well, if there's a disaster, then everybody's gonna be fending for themselves, and there won't be anything you can do to stop other people. It's like, yeah, there are predators. There are predators among us. That's true, but that's not most people. You
Yeah,
see it every time
and
there's a natural disaster, right? Like tons of people come out to help.
yes, when they and do it. It's like if you look at like uh, if you look at various natural disasters, you see that people do help each other in various ways, and I wish that more politicians would take note of this, because something that's often done when there are like big crises, it's like they don't inform the people because they say that, well, you don't want to scare them and make them panic. But that's not what happens. When people are
Right.
informed, they help each other better. That's basically what always happens. If you look at like various earthquakes in like the United States, that is what has happened, despite politicians trying to limit the amount of information because they claim that people will panic. But yeah. So yeah, and like the predators they are definitely not the norm. They are, and like the innate traits of human. I mean, we are very cooperative. It's like how all of all of these myriads of different societies has been able to be for thousands of years is because we do cooperate a lot. It's like it's one of the things we do the most. But yeah,
Humans are social creatures. We need each other.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like we thrive on helping each other. It's just that it comes back to the propaganda again about like in a capitalist society where everything is supposed to be competition, that goes against the narrative.
Yeah,
we are
and you were
trying
saying
constantly.
like you wish more politicians would like give out more information and scaremonger less, but like I think that's kind of the point. Right? Is like a lot of the predators wind up in positions of power because there's the ones who seek it out.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how we get,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
I think that's
ruthless
like
CEOs and politicians
yeah,
like Trumperdink and
Kneel
BB.
down.
yeah. And I think one example of what is scaring the, let's call them the CEO class after this Brian Thompson died was how they are realizing that not they thought that most people wanted to be them, and they are realizing that a lot of people don't. That's not what people want. People don't want to be the exploitative predatory CEO responsible for a lot of deaths. They'd rather not have them, and that I think is scaring them a lot, actually.
There's definitely a sorry, please go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, they're definitely spending a lot of time trying to get like 90+% of people to stop making the claims adjuster pro the United Healthcare shooter memes, Saint Luigi memes. I mean, like it's like across the board. Even a lot of people who self-identify as conservative, including like Ben Shapiro's own audiences, like these right winger audiences, have like disowned their own right wing. I saw like somebody in Ben Shapiro said like I'm a conservative, and now I know people like you have been trying to propagandize people like me against to divide me amongst other like left or minority groups. It's actually like it's like so that actually broke a lot of the established like the kind of propaganda compartmentalization. It's not even working when it comes to the claims adjuster. And I think they've gotten so like lazy. I feel like I was thinking about it. When was the last time like somebody actually punched up and like did either a huge big public theft or unaliving or killing of a wealthy someone in the upper capitalist class, right? And it's like John Dillinger was famous for like the bank robberies in the 30s, and then there's like Robin Hood. I mean, there's very few like actual and that was like during the right in the Great Depression era. So like I don't think they don't really know what to do with the propagandists that maintain this horrible capitalist global imperialist and CEO benefiting system. They don't know what to do. They keep making mistakes, and that's a good thing. That is the true gift of Christmas is the United Healthcare.
The light of the first night of Hanukkah this year is the light on the spotlight on CEO's fear.
Mm-hmm.
The
But I
three
gotta say, I
ghosts
love
say
the
deny
fact
the
that Ben
30 ghosts.
Shapiro is getting some backlash from his own conservative audience. Like, it's the thing that I've always said about Ben Shapiro in particular is like we don't talk to capos because there were always those Jews who were fascists. Like we were talking about earlier, there were always those Jews who were fascists. He's in a grand tradition of terribleness, and you see, I don't know if y'all follow what's going on with these people as closely, but like when
People.
Nazi Nick Fuentes started going after Ben Shapiro. Like, what did you think was going to happen, Ben? And then I sit there thinking,
Yeah.
and Nick, what do you think is going to happen with that Hispanic last name once all of the people who are more obviously, on the other side of the
Yeah.
line go? There, like that's the next step. But
Yeah,
white
or
supremacy is going to white
it's
supremacy.
yeah, or it's similar to how certain gay Republican politicians suddenly, oh wait, no, suddenly they are kicked out of the party or are being like targeted by other Republicans, and it's like, yeah, they're good. You're gay. They're not just because you. Yeah, they're gonna do that. That's white supremacy is gonna white supremacy.
There is no one of the good ones.
Yeah.
No, I think the main thing is those are always pyramidal structures. So they think they will be at the top of some, but they have more problems with being at the bottom of some other class. There's always that hope they will climb, but it's usually not realized and very frustrating for them, and they pay those frustrations with the ones they perceive in the lower echelon of the pyramid.
Mm-hmm. The same cycle. Like paying off a group of people by saying, at least you're not at the bottom, only works until they aren't at the bottom. Then you have to make them the bottom and somebody else gets to turn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah, definitely.
Then
Like
it gets narrower and narrower until they're kicking their own people.
yeah. Yeah, I just saw.
and yeah, and similar.
Go ahead.
Go on.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I've been getting a lot of those, those memes and those posts. It does, and I see like a lot of like, I was talking earlier about like, there's all these like people. There's like a lot of like, it's like folk guitar. Somebody in the country, somebody that looks like they're probably in like a red area. Like they sound and talk and like symbols in their TikTok is like in a red state, even Texas or Alabama or somewhere. Some of these people, but they're playing like Woody Guthrie. They're playing like Depression era, like anti-capitalist, anti-CEO like folk songs, and that's like that's one of many reasons why they want to ban TikTok. Obviously, coming up in this January, the United States is going to ban that. Obviously, to keep their genocides and imperial lies going, and bury that. But also like because there is this like rising well, they're seeing the potential, right? I think they're not really paying that close attention to this. They're seeing the potential for also like the same, somebody mentioned in the chat, the victims of anti-communist education will be mandatory in US high schools now. But they passed that law, Congress, like almost like it was like over, I think it was over 80% unanimously passed, or not unanimous, but very very high level of Congress support, bipartisan for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because but right after the CEO shooting, and people like the vast majority, there's like 56,000 likes for like 5,000, or no, 56,000 like laughing and like anti Brian Thompson and pro the shooter, to like less than 10% sympathy for Brian Thompson, and that has just kept exploding, right? And so like that really, it's at that, like in the beginning we're talking about Occupy Wall Street, right? And like I feel like it feels so, that's why it feels so much like that again, that moment, like where there is a huge amount of always legitimate and always existing rage against the capitalist machine that is just like, but now it's like really the shooter has really brought it to the forefront, and obviously they're scared of copycats. But the thing is, there already has been like I've been trying to follow as much as I can. It's hard, obviously, but they're trying to bury a lot of it. But there have already been copycats. There's at least one president of a company was stabbed in the middle of a meeting. All right, and that was even more like the guy wasn't trying to get away with it. Yeah, he just up and an employee, and it was a white man. He up and just like stabbed the president in a meeting. I think the president survived, but you know, it's people are, and another guy, actually a security guard in San Francisco, another insurance executive in San Francisco, about a year ago. This is actually before this. It's kind of like I liken it in this. I was recently talking about how it's similar to the Aaron Bushnell was not the first to self-immolate in support of Gaza and of Palestine to stop genocide. He was the one.
There was a woman before.
Yeah, it was a woman before, but he was a little bit more media. Like he had a media savvy approach to it, right? So you couldn't the you know, the imperial propaganda machine could not disconnect the political message from the act, because he had live streamed it. Like, it was already gone out to so many people. He said free Palestine while he was on fire, and like he got the message out in a way that it was already out of the bag, right? The cat was already out of the bag before the media could clamp down and silence it. And the shooter last year, there was a security guard who assassinated a CEO of an insurance company in San Francisco last year. They haven't caught him, right? That's also why I'm like, this Luigi is this is nonsense. Like, there's no, this, like, they're not gonna catch they're almost, unless this guy gives himself up, they're not gonna catch the actual UHC shooter. But there was already somebody who did that. They killed an insurance executive. I mean, but we don't know exactly why the story was buried. It disappeared. But if that person had, like, if that San Francisco security guard had shot the executive on camera, broadcasted for the world, where everyone could see it, it had, people were already pissed off at insurance adjusters. They'd all been dying by the thousands and by the millions from, right, denied claims for chemo and other, you know, medications, right? So, but it's just that the UHC shooter understood exactly what had to be done in order to, like, cause this, like, nodal point, this explosive like setting off the powder keg of the always latent, you know, rage against these the unjust system. And the people, because people are sitting there going, I am powerless, I can't do anything. 300 million Americans are just like, I hate this, but I'm just gonna, like, suck it up and watch my child die, you know. And, like, you know, it's kind of like almost, it shows, like, how I think people, like, realize how ridiculous. I'm not saying that people should go off and immediately, you can't condone that publicly, obviously, going around, it'd be a violation of the TOS, among other things. But people are like, why hasn't that happened? Right? Why hasn't that happened? Like it's concretely true that the other shooter is still on the loose. The family of that other executive in San Francisco, the family is suing the security company because they haven't done anything because they don't even know where that guy is, right? Because the police don't solve crimes, right? Which is part of the propaganda we're talking about earlier, right? Which is that I just watched Die Hard, but that's propaganda that says police are like Bruce Willis. They're super competent. They can stop the most well-funded, advanced, very intelligent thieves in the world. But the NYPD doesn't do anything but beat up on strikers and beat people up for landlords and beat people up for corporate lords. After strikes for the corporate lords and evictions for the landlords, and then catch slaves. I'm sorry, prisoners.
Shoot people who can't afford to pay for the subway, but have to use it to go to work.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah,
I think that was what finally tipped me over the edge into fuck it. There are no okay cops. Was realizing how little they actually perform of the functions that I was raised to believe that they did.
And when the New York City police, when they were on strike, crime in New York went down, so they had to stop striking after like 5-6 days.
Shocked Pikachu face goes here.
But I think, like, it's also part of how well the propaganda works, that so many people feel powerless, and like this whole how they individualize everybody, so you feel disconnected and powerless and have to keep on doing the grind to feed yourself. But like I feel it will inevitably always break if it continues. I mean, because like wealth and income inequality has like skyrocketed, if you, or like it has been steadily increasing ever since, like, I don't know, the 80s basically. And there will be a tipping point where people can't take it anymore. I feel.
Yeah. That's the thing is like, oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree in a sense that, like, we talked about, or you were right, I mentioned earlier how we were often told growing up that history is written by the victors. But I also realized that's like the one side of like history. I guess I see history as more dialectical than that. Not to get fancy, but just like I think people, how do you say, the oppressed also write history too, write a history of resistance. But of course, that might not be written by the victors. They're not going to write it. But people resistance also makes history. And so I guess I just kind of want to come back, 'cause I feel like we've talked a lot about, like like the hegemon and what it does to control us, to make us conform, to exploit us. And it's like, no, we have our various pockets of resistance. And I guess I want to make sure like we touch upon that. And I guess
Yeah.
like I think about currently, I guess, I guess not like I guess in my mind, I guess I think about like Grenada, like a tiny island, maybe just to bring home the point about people in very small places who we don't it's like maybe we think by our sheer size that maybe fighting or struggle seems almost impossible, right? I guess within the confines of, Western hegemony. But they were able to come up. I guess for them, they did take the communist route with Maurice Bishop, but even though the US eventually took over, what always amazed me in his speeches was his clarity about what the US was doing economically in Grenada. While and this is like the mid 80s too, when he's having a critique of capitalism, which almost seems a bit absurd, right? Because it's so normal. It's it's sold as like, oh, it's going to give you all that you need and things like that, right? The kind of like glitter materialism of capitalism rather than like the poverty that it creates in its periphery, especially in the Caribbean. And they understood that they would have to believe in themselves contrary to what they were told as colonized people, especially colonized African people who were in the Caribbean. And I remember like the health programs that they created because, you know, as a former like plantation colony, their health was not important at all. And so I'm thinking about the jewel movement, just to be more specific about that, which I find is so elegant, right? This idea of communism to help the people as a jewel, which is like a socialist program for housing, for education, for healthcare as well. And as a way of like just providing the needs of people is also a way to resist, you know, because
Yeah.
they don't want us to be healthy. They don't want us to be in community. Because if we're in our right minds and strong, we can actually fight back. So yeah, I'll just end there. Because we were kind of going there about cooperation and things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, even spaces where you might not expect that, like the was it the Portland city block that just got turned into a giant commune during the George Floyd riots? Like
Ah.
this can happen. This is possible.
Yeah, it happened here in Spain, in the city of Cartagena, in the middle of the Spanish Civil War, in the past century. And Cartagena was an independent commune for, I think, about a year before it was conquered by the Franco nationals.
All right.
Wait,
But yeah, I mean
can
the
you
reason
repeat that last
oh,
part again?
sorry.
Monogatete, could you repeat that last part?
Yeah, Cartagena was an independent commune for about a year. They made their own coins and such, and they had a medieval fortress built around the city. So they were able to resist, but they ended being conquered by Franco nationals.
Okay, thank you for that. Hmm.
And on the topic of like, who like that there is also a lot of history being written or being done in, or like resistance in praxis. One thing that irritated me about this whole how these right-wing grifters, that they were paid by Russia. Oh, look how foolish they are. And now they're going to use these laws against them, etc. It was like a common theme throughout, especially like liberal media, but also like yeah, and it's like, yes, that happened, and that is the thing, and yeah, they sure, but they're also using the same laws and the same ways of repression to like stop Africa Stream from being able to to broadcast or whatever, to and like stop others who are important, like, and have a lot of knowledge to share. So I don't know, I just was reminded of that many like leftist or whatever focused on, oh, look at these fooled right-wing grifters, how silly they look, while overlooking that the same like tactics against them also are being used against a lot of other people who are not grifters.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about how hard governments, I mean the US especially, I'm not super aware of which other governments are doing this other than the US and the UK, but how hard people are trying to control the internet. Like POSA almost went through again, and like that, like they're trying to take control of the internet so that you can't build solidarity this way.
Yeah.
And that's a constant threat. And like in the US, the perspective that we get constantly on this is, oh, look how scary China is. They're controlling what their people can see. And it's like, but you're trying to do that to us while you're telling us that's scary? Okay. I mean, like, you're not wrong that that's scary, but pot kettle?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah.
it's all distraction techniques, and look over here while I pull the rug over your face, you know.
Sweden are big proponents of what is called chat control, if you have heard of it. It's basically how to we are like in Sweden, we have been, even though we claimed originally not to be, but we have been pushing chat control 2.0 to become a law or a thing in all of the European Union, which would basically like it's to allow a lot of backdoors for governments and police into everything encrypted. It's really scary, um, and at first when people started asking the Swedish government about like their involvement, they were like, yeah, we support it, but we are not like that's it. We support it, but it's not like our thing. We're just one of many who support it. But apparently it's like it was basically to a large extent written by Swedish politicians, and also been pushing it really, really hard. And it's like, yeah, it's basically like, yeah, it would allow governments and police to be able to look into all communication. Is basically the
And don't you know they're only going to use it to catch bad guys, because that's what police always do.
Yeah,
right,
sure.
right. Which is
What I fear
the
the
Pegasus program never targeted anyone like a independent journalist or such. The spyware from
Ever.
yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely
Sorry.
only Israel that has ever used these tactics.
Mm. Oh yes. Look at them, they're doing this thing. What we know, no, we are not doing that. Sorry, you're saying something. Monogagot.
yeah.
I don't know.
I was saying what I fear the most is there is no need really for regulation. The internet has been in the last year concentrating in big social media platforms instead of the old internet where everyone built their node with their website and their own hosting. This meeting we are doing it through Discord, but a few years ago we would have used TeamSpeak or such, but an alternative probably not backed by a big corporation. But nowadays, with the easiness of use that these platforms have brought, less people have the technical knowledge to host their own websites, to start their own communication channels. It's like people not being able to print magazines uh, in the 50s or 60s. I fear this knowledge is being lost and is being hard to replace in the future.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's so wild
yes.
you
And I
say
mean,
that. Because like oddly enough, like I'm not a big social media user. Like I'm one of those oddities. Like I deleted my Facebook, I think back in 2010 or 2011. Yeah, I was one of those. And I'm slowly coming back. It's just I don't know because I just been out for too long. I don't get it. I'm like, can I just tell people I know about these things? I don't, because I have like, boomer brain or something. But I'm just like, this feels redundant. But that aside, because like I'm someone like, I still use websites. Like I'm a big archive nerd, and I like just looking up primary sources and going through like, cited links and stuff like that. And I don't know why I started to think this, but I was like, wait a minute, people have websites. And then there are these social media platforms where people just post to websites. What if one day these platforms are gone? Will people know that these websites exist? Like, will they know, like,
That's why
you can get this
places like the Internet Archive
information?
are so important. Sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
mean to
Yeah,
speak over you.
totally.
Please go ahead.
no, it's fine. I know, like, you're right. It's like waiting in the cut too. But yeah, like, I also get concerned that, you know, people who are more social media savvy may not always be engaging with primary resources, and sites are also one of those as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's really important that preservation efforts, especially of anything digital, because the digital world is so fragile. Like it's amazingly fragile. You know, as somebody adjacent to archaeology, I think a lot about how little of the internet will be accessible one day unless we find some way of preserving it that's more physical. And things are already happening. Like if you go into like the history of video games at all, there's a huge movement to basically preserve and even find old video games because they just like old films too because they just didn't keep them around, right? So there's so much that's already been lost. So many websites that have gone to dust. You know, because we need to understand how we got to where we are and how to get back there if we need to. Because you're
yeah.
right.
Most of it is made from arbitrary decisions. So getting back at it from the start is almost impossible.
Yeah. So to preserve the history and the knowledge of how that history happened is incredibly important. I mean, I'm speaking from my bias as a historian, you know, but also, but Monogatete has exactly the same point, I think, of like this knowledge. If we don't have it, how will we organize if they do take control of the internet?
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, that's
Yeah,
one of the things that we have to really get back on top of as organizers, I think.
yes, and also like if you don't have a path to how we got where we are, it's gonna be a lot harder to go where we would like, and not the giant tech companies that have been consolidating for so long to make us end up here where just a
Where we
few
are bound by
companies
their endless
control.
terms of service.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, and yes, it is like, it is scary that there is so much that has already been lost, and it's like it also makes not only like how much information is controlled and shaped by that, but also it makes a handful of people being able to enact such huge amounts of change throughout almost like not only like the United States but on like globally, like like yeah um, how like Facebook making decisions about their algorithms, or about like Instagram, that has like they have power in a way that that like that's uh, that many nations definitely do not. They are more powerful than nations. We are already kind of in a sort of cyberpunk dystopia with like megacorps. If you look at like and I've also been like never. I didn't. I never liked social media, even though like growing up in Sweden, there was like a push in the 90s to build out the infrastructure for everybody, because we like Sweden decided, yes, internet is important, we're gonna need to ensure everybody has internet basically. So a huge part, or a huge part of Sweden used internet quite early on. So we had a handful of different social media sites that became really popular before, say, Facebook existed. And I was on them as a little kid and was like, no, this is not good. I don't like this. And even more so with like Facebook, I had one for a few years, but didn't use it much, and was like trying to tell others that they should probably not use theirs either. Or like when Gmail came and it became very popular, it was like, well, you know that they're reading all your emails, right? They're reading all your emails to target advertising to you. They already know everything you search for. Do you also want them to know everything that's sent to you in your emails? But also this whole like consolidation of the giant tech firms, which is like what has created both that they have tremendous power in using their platforms, but also in via lobbyism to protect their platforms and their power. So, and also in that, like, this whole there instead of, as you said, there were a lot of different sites. Sure, some of them were hosted on stuff like GeoCities, but if GeoCities stopped, then you could just basically copy paste your site to another provider. You weren't like,
Oh,
it was more yours than it is today with sites with social media
wow.
sites. Um, it was a lot more fragmented. So which, I mean, it's like someone mentioned earlier about this the convenience. Yeah, it's like it's convenient if everybody is on Facebook, so that you can I don't know, see what someone you briefly went to the same class as in school does. Sure, I guess. But it also, the convenience comes at a much higher cost than people realize.
Exactly.
And I have to say, I'm gonna call myself out as the weak link on this. I love social media. I
We
love it.
know.
Ah.
You get it. You get it.
I do get it. And it's in a lot of ways it has changed my life for the better, and I don't hear that a lot. But I wouldn't have either of the careers I have now without it. And I certainly wouldn't be here without it.
And that is
Yeah,
something that I also hear. And there is another thing I also hear is it has literally saved people I know's life, because it's a way of doing mutual aid that is like almost global. So I mean, it definitely does. The social part of the name isn't just, it's not a lie. It is social. It connects people. It's not just this bad algorithm thing for the tech pros to rule over us all. It has all of these other aspects to it as well.
But it does have that terrifying cost to it. And it's one that is nigh invisible if you aren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the concept of social media that is wrong. It's the execution.
The corporate
Yeah.
nature of the rulership.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that capitalism leads to companies consolidating to create monopolies. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's the social media. I mean, because like just to obviously echo all the. I do make cyberpunk dystopias for a living. All I do is imagine the worst possible torment nexus in the world with cool hacking in it, and then I make it. But like that's why my job is to do science fiction of a dystopian nature. But but also like I mean, like even this conversation and Silver Spook Cooperative. I mean, like as a indie, I'm a native Hawaiian, like anti-colonial, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, you know, game dev with no corporate backing. I have no capitalist corporation. I got zero funding. I've never taken out a
Pardon
loan.
me.
I've never we don't have any funding. We don't have any backing. We have no corporate. I have no publisher. Like usually games used to have publishers, and nobody will publish Neofeud because I make anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist games that directly call out the Clintons, the Bushes, and I don't call for anyone to ever be executed. People sometimes die that are CEOs in my games, but it goes after like all the dirt of every imperialist power ever. And publishers said, we're not going to publish Neofeud because you got to change the names of this, you got to change this, and you got to change that. And I said, no, that was a risk because if I said yes, they would say, here's $100,000. Like, here's funding for your next game. Like, Silver Spook, here's salaries for 10 people to do art and writing and programming, so you don't have to do it all and do marketing and debug and try to get things ported to DS Switch, make a VR version for Facebook's Meta. I don't know, whatever crap. Like I can't afford. People ask me, Silver Spook, when are you gonna get it translated into German, French, Spanish, Japanese? And I'm like, I can't afford it because it costs $4,500. That's what it did at the time. And like I don't have that money. But at the same time, it's kind of like I could have more, right? More funding. And that was another thing we were talking about. Like if you do nonprofit, or if you're not doing the bidding of the capitalist, power, the colonial order, the military industrial complex, right, then you have less total assets. But with social media, I could reach, like I have like 60,000-70,000 followers in all my Twitter, I have Mastodon, I'm on every platform. If we put it all together, it's enough that like I can reach enough people and make all the connections necessary so that like Neofeud is on sale right now, and so that I don't need a publisher to put my game through advertisements, right? That's so much money to get it to the front of the Steam store, put it on the front of the, if it was on PlayStation or Xbox, get it to the front. I don't need to have all these corporate middlemen. Each one of those would be pulling the plug on my message or what I'm trying to do, right? They'd be like, no, sanitize that game. I want it. This better be like CNN ready. Your game better be like Halo, or we're not going to publish it. But I can do what we at Silver Spook Games, and I mean Holly, we can do what we do because the social media. I mean, not just social media. There's probably a way to do this, but it definitely would have been impossible in the '90s or the '90s. Definitely at least part of the '90s, and so so that's like a great benefit because it can, it's kind of like the democratizing force of and just nature of the social media where the whatever you're seeing. I mean, partially yes, the corporate overlords can be like, well, we're going to censor that word. You put Palestine. I try to see Palestine on YouTube because they're very harsh, but they can push things down to an extent, but then at the same time, like there's still like what people choose to share, right? It's important that there is still a lot of it's horrible, but it needs to be seen. The atrocities in Gaza are still visible. I mean, they're trying to push it down, but the fact that it's still been visible, it's more visible on TikTok, but it's still visible even on the other sites. But the fact that they've been trying to push it down, but it still exists, suggests that like the democratize the fact that people can choose to retweet, that's like a vote for that to be seen, as opposed to like in traditional media. I mean, as bad as social media is, if it's 1980 and CNN, right, and also these are global television networks. They had the U.S. empire was stronger in the 20th century in terms of global reach, like just in terms of like BRICS, and so you might not know it, but they also had the strings into, like, they wrote South Korea's Pledge of Allegiance in their school. They also wrote their TV, right? They wrote European, they wrote the world's scripts, right? And there was no vote. It's just like the DC and the Pentagon and Wall Street got together and they said, this is what's going to be on the news tonight in India, in Alabama, and in Stockholm, and in South Korea, and in Japan. You're all going to watch. This is the story, and there is zero vote, right? There's the only vote is, it's the 8 people in the board of directors room that's going to sit there, and that's the only vote that's going to count. It's oligarchy. So. But now, if people say, I want people to see this is horrible, but people need to see this child dying, getting shot by an Israeli. You can see the Israeli soldier shooting this 3-year-old. People need to see that. So I'm going to hit share. And then if 1 million people do that, even with all the force, and the thing is, corporations are not made up of, they don't function because a capitalist, useless, aristocratic emerald diapered baby like Elon does work, right? He actually breaks social media, right? They have to keep him out, right? It takes underpaid Indian immigrants. Not that's bad. He just chose to keep them on. And it takes people who have, like, I've actually tried to reach these people in the tech company. That's actually one thing about Neofeud. I've had multiple Amazon. I shouldn't say anything about this Death Star satellites, but I've had Twitter, Facebook employees tell me after playing Neofeud, I changed the way that I altered the algorithm against Mark Zuckerberg's own wishes. Like, I was at Apple and I changed because I realized how horrible. You should have realized it sooner, but so people inside the corporations, they're not cooperatives yet. They're not nationalized and they're not democratically controlled, the platforms yet, right? But inside these corporations, right, there is a war inside the corporations, right, against, like we said, right, most people don't want to be Elon. They sign up to be, they got a computer science degree and put in, years of work to get skilled at coding, right? Like multiple people here, me, Monogatete, and Riot at least, right? We got good at computer science to make the world a better place, right? Most people don't sign up to make billions, trillions of dollars, right? And like ruin their own company, like Elon, right? So inside the companies, there is a war. That's part of why. I know this for a fact. That's part of why they Peter Teal, the Palantir guy, the Zionists and the imperialists and Bill Gates, they'll be like, okay, silence this, right? They'll say, you, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, America's TikTok algorithm, you guys need to silence this term, but not everyone will comply with that, right? And it's like it's malicious non-compliance in the tech companies that is part of what is happening now. And like the huge strike, if it's just saying the word strike, I know it's not good for my algorithm, but like that, and if this platform and all of these tech platforms were, like in Monogatete, Spain, cooperatize like Mondragon or another one, like Huawei is also another one, as part of a process towards part of the struggle towards against the capitalist system inside these corporations, then that's progress. So anyways, that's just because Big Teal said we should have that's some of the resistance that is happening. It's quietly happening. Like, they're not going to come out and say that because you obviously get fired if you say, "Oh yes, I am the one that is I'm the one who's letting everyone see Gaza in Twitter," right? I am the you're gone, right? But it is happening there. I know this. Anyways, that's my rant.
It's so great to know that your work can
Thank
touch
you.
so many people.
If you have played Neofeud, thank you so much. Don't feel like you have to buy it, but we can use money. Yeah.
No, it is a great game.
Oh, thanks for playing it.
Few
Also, Victor.
games have, few games have hit me that hard, right in the feelings.
I apologize. I have no Spanish translation for you.
No problem. I know it must be really hard.
Did you say that it has hit you in the feels, as some would say.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, me too.
That's good. I mean, I tried to make games that's I wanted to I was gonna pull some of the harder scenes, but I'm glad there's one scene in particular. Everybody who played it knows, but yeah, it's very intense. But like that's a scene that a lot of people have said. I come back and think about that scene a lot, and like it made me think about it. Made me change. I mean, I don't want to necessarily like say I'm not like saving the world, obviously, but it's just like everybody. But it is nice when people say, that like this part of the game. It made me. I knew there were some problems with racism. I knew, but I didn't really think about it too much. But then I was like, I remember somebody said like, in this particular scene in Neofeud, there's a scene where you're basically complicit in ethnic. You're doing colonialism, right? You're stealing children from. You're part of the process of killing innocent, marginalized indigenous people, or it's a marginalized group. It's not necessarily one, but then you're part of that process, and you basically do a CPS form, right? And you're like, you have to go through with that because like that's your job, right? And so it's kind of like so I almost cut that out because it is super intense. Like it was hard to make. I'm a Native Hawaiian. I mean, we're the ones who are targeted for child removal, like Native Americans. So, but yeah, if everybody finds something from that and it changes them, then that's like makes it it does make it like worth like 2.5 years of working my butt off while working full time at the same time.
Oh.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that. And anyway, this doesn't have to be a Silver Spook commercial, but we do need money.
Well,
But it's your work.
It's
the work that you do.
It's your art. And it's important because, you're saying like, oh, I don't know that I've changed the world, but you have. If you change hearts and minds, even one or two, change the world.
True. Well, I've definitely.
And that's how we have to do it.
Yeah. I've definitely been influenced by definitely Zilla and Big Teal and everybody in some way. You all do some kind of important work in the world, so I do think that's that yeah. It's a team, and also Holly. I can't forget Holly. Without Holly helping me with so much work, I would never find a single clothing item, and the stream would not function. And Neofeud would not be done. So I would just be sitting in piles of, I would not eat, and many things would go wrong. So yeah. So shout out to Holly. It's not yeah. So it's a Silver Spook cooperative. I am not the CEO. Okay, so UHC shooter, please. I'm not a CEO. I'm a humble cooperative steward of this native land.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like a t-shirt. I'm getting t-shirt when I hear that. I'm not a CEO.
No, but I think it's inspiring when you can hear about somebody's art changing hearts and minds. It doesn't. It's something I have to remind myself a lot because I am no longer in a position to teach a classroom, right? And when I was, I felt amazing, like I was doing something real, and I had to come away from that because of because of pandemic and because of academia and the way that it works and all of that. And I think that
doesn't work.
yes, precisely. See also my entire YouTube channel, which is my personal substitute for having a classroom.
Aww.
Because I miss teaching, because I miss reaching people. And like on YouTube, I have less than 1,000 subscribers. I'm nobody after 4 years. And I have to remind myself, if I had 700 children in a classroom, I would be like flipping my shit. Right? Like it's not.
Hello and welcome.
It's never going to scale. It's not like that. It's all of us together. each of us working to change and educate in our own way. Sorry, I don't mean to be like Katara here. Please, somebody else talk.
No, like I told, like as someone who's also a former educator who was in academia and is no longer part of it because it is like I don't want to seem so negative, but if you ever watched this documentary called The Watchtower, it's with oh my God, he's a very prominent like Jewish anti-Zionist professor. Ah, can't believe I'm forgetting his name. You all know him, but he's not coming up to me. But another one, Professor Massad in Colombia, who have they get harassed for decades now because of their anti-Zionist position. And just recently, there's this whole like fake campaign by this adjunct in Colombia who said that he was resigning because Dr. Massad is teaching people to hate Jews. And it turns out the guy wasn't even scheduled to teach next semester, but yet he wants to make this whole big fake thing out of it. But yeah, like for me at least, I had to realize that not everyone is in academia for knowledge. Some people really treat it like a business and they treat it like I love how like I think it was Silver who says like it's like the it's like the monarch's court is what academia is. And it really is. Like it's elitist and it's people who actually want to be a part of that, right? They're working class people, middle class people who align with it and they will do what it takes, to be part of that. And I don't think I was equipped for that. Or if I had known that that was what it was going to be, I would have entered graduate school with a very different mentality.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And
but
it's rough because people don't go into it necessarily with that mindset. A lot of
they
people go
don't.
in with the pure love of the work. And
And when you do, you
and that
get
is
experience.
turned against them. It is turned against them. It is
Yeah.
abused.
Yes.
And people
And
go on and they're like, well, this is what I've trained for my whole life, so I'm going to work from the inside. And then they really can't in a lot of ways.
unless you play the game, unless you
Yeah.
play it. And I too miss teaching. Like I felt like that was the first time ever in my life that all the skills that I had that was felt so intangible actually worked towards something, right? From like the curriculum building to talking with people. Like my favorite part, because I taught composition for a few years with other a part of with along with other things, but getting with a student and hammering through this essay. Like, what's your ideas? How are you structuring it? What's your argument? How are you supporting this? Like, I love those conversations of learning where it's like where you get to see people's minds click, you know? I love the space of people learning and thinking. I don't think there's anything like it.
Yeah. I love teaching writing. I had so much fun.
And it's funny because you get to teach like when people think like literature, it gets to be opened up. Like I was teaching like freaking Aztec literature or like oh my God, this is like so extreme, but it was like a whole big thing where like in the news where that woman who was sexually assaulted and that biker found her and she wrote like this like I forgot what you call like a victim's account in court where you have to give when someone is being accused of sexual assault. And for that, for me, was like part of like literature as well. Like, what does the court look like? How do you understand gender here and things like that? It was a wild time, but I love so
Yeah.
many things. But I think it got crazier when I started talking about fascism. That's when things kind of like, you know, things got rough all of a sudden. I started teaching Maurice Bishop. I don't know. But that's a whole conversation for another time. But I just want to say, because we've been here for a few hours, I don't know what people's times are, but I just want to do a time check. But
Yeah. I should
before,
probably get going soon.
But before people go, I just want to say, like, I'm just really amazed at this conversation. Like, I was pretty nervous about being a part of it because it's like streaming, it's live, but I really appreciate all the thoughtful comments you have made and like experiences that everyone has. And it's just been a joy. And thank you so much for this talk on this day, you know. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for including me in this. Y'all are amazing. I'm having an absolute blast talking with all of you. Like you're all so interesting, and I'm honestly kind of honored to be here.
Hey, well, you know, we're
Same here.
yeah, I was gonna say we're happy to have you here, Zilla, and all of you, obviously. I feel bad because like I haven't done as many, like many people, like 5-person panel events. I didn't even know what to call it. So I want to talk to all the cool people I know are out there. I know we're all busy. Like a lot of us are like busy, you know, it's busy, and like I'm like I don't know. I was trying to do some kind of I try to have like educational topics specifically, but then I was just kind of like I have a hard time putting them together, and I'm like I gotta do so much work, and I don't know what to do. So thanks everybody. You know, if you are on here, you know, I definitely wanted you to be here. I'll try to do more events of some kinds. Because yeah, I'm also having a blast. Like I don't talk to a lot of people. I wish I would. You know, it's just it's hard to get stuff together. I know it's like I'm like 40 something years old. And it's like I've fallen out of a lot of circles. You know, I have to cut off some people for like. Unfortunately, it's just like hard. You know, social people have bad takes, health practices, and it sucks. So, and at the same time, people are like not as much willing to. I don't know. It's been harder for me to get remote things together for a whole host of reasons. So thanks everybody here who has taken the time to come out and just hang out and talk about these topics. Yeah, it has been a really great time. I really value everybody's input here. Everyone here is really interesting, as Zilla said. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I didn't have a time. I know I didn't have a time limit, so don't feel like we should probably wrap it up soon. Yeah. So if you wanna, yeah. Sorry, Victor, I'm interrupting.
Yeah,
you.
no, I'm I was just also gonna say that thanks. It's been really interesting and cool to talk to all of you and hear all of this knowledge being shared and all of these ideas. And I second the notion that it's been an honor and I didn't know what to expect, but I, I mean, I knew that like the people around Silver Spook, they're good people, so it's gonna be good. But yeah, no, it's really been a blast, and I definitely would like to participate in something akin to this in the future as well. Uh, I'm starting to feel kind of like I don't know how much of it is tired because I did sleep really weird. So I shouldn't be tired, but at the same time I feel my brain energy is pretty low now. So I'm having trouble finding words. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you all for being here and thanks for hosting this panel or whatever and letting me and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for.
Yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you all.
Yeah, go. Yep. Oh, sorry, Victor. If you wanted to say, you could say. We'll probably like just. I'll end the Christmas party. I think that's what I called it. That's. I'll end it.
Wait,
And,
I have one thing to recommend.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, say whatever you want before we go.
Wait. So, there's this, I cause like we were talking about propaganda or cop propaganda, and there's this one show that came out called The Endgame, and it's about this. I think she's an ethnic Russian mercenary type figure who lives in Ukraine, and she gets stabbed by, I guess, some Western Ukrainians, and and her family gets killed by order of the president, who was working with a Ukrainian mobster, and they take her in. So the FBI takes her in to figure out her next hit. And she creates all these bank robberies that gets the Americans on her side. And what's so amazing is that there's only one season of this. And I looked at when it first aired, I kid you not, it aired before Russia's operation on February 22nd. This show came on February 21st, and it got canceled after one season. And when you watch this show, this one woman, one Russian woman with like couture fashion, runs New York City. And let's say it's Luigi before Luigi. So it's something you guys might want to check out. It's 10 episodes or 8 episodes. It's really short and sweet. And the way it ends, I'm like, God damn it. Why isn't there a season 2?
Okay.
A lot of
Yeah,
shows
But
get
I think
canceled.
I know why.
Cool. Yeah. I have my suspicions as well.
Yeah. But anybody has any others? You can.
Yes, but Endgame.
We know Zilla's channel. If anybody else has anything else they want to share, Nora Riot stream.
Yeah, I guess I should actually say my channel name is Zilla's Athenaeum. So
Oh.
I'm sure we can put that in chat or something.
Yeah, I think we have a Holly put it out there at one point. We have a command for that.
Thank you, Holly.
Yeah, we'll put it again.
I appreciate it.
There you go.
You want to see me rail against academia and cops and stuff? That's there. Well, so if you want to see me rail against like people celebrating Spartan agoge, that's there too.
Yeah, I stream on Twitch under the name Neuro Riot. If somebody wants to see or me do some disability advocacy, some anti-imperialist, and or just some weird animations and films that are like yeah, a lot of politics and a lot of
Okay, cool.
a lot of things that aren't covered by mainstream news.
And Victor.
And I just mostly lurk. I don't have public channels, nor stream, nor anything like that.
Victor is my secret agent in Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I have Victor pulling all the strings in the algorithm for me. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, he's underground.
He can't talk. He has to be very hush hush.
You didn't hear him.
Yeah, he wasn't there. There's no identifying information. I'm just kidding.
Really, I'm just very shy.
Yeah, thanks for coming up, Victor. Yeah, great to see you. Okay then, I guess yeah, now's a good time as ever to end. Thanks everybody for coming out. Don't forget, Neofeud is on sale. Yeah, happy Christmas holidays of any kinds that you celebrate. And yeah,
Happy Festivus.
Happy Festivus.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
God jul, or Merry Merry you.
I think
don't know.
Kwanzaa starts tomorrow as well. So
What's the notes?
it was a very compact year for holidays.
Mhm. Was it Mele Kalikimaka and oh shoot, what is Mele Kalikimaka is Merry Christmas in Hawaiian, so there you go.
Lekalikimaka.
Okay, bye.
Kalikimaka?
There you go.